Pokemon Ninjutsu Master Chapter 1001-1050. Chapter 1001. Luokan followed Chuyu to the place where Shiba Sora was teaching Ganju, and he saw Rukia there. Rukia! Ichigo shouted loudly. He already knew about Shiba Heian, so he was a little worried. Luokan looked at everyone suspiciously, not knowing what happened. Origi whispered to Luokan about Shiba Heian, and Luokan suddenly realized. This is already in the past, so don't pursue it, Kong. Luokan said with a smile, hoping to appease Shiba Kong. Ganju originally hated Rukia, but after getting along with her, he found that she was a good person, so he also said a few words for Rukia. Shiba Kong immediately turned his attention to Ganju, which made Ganju shudder, and quickly closed his forehead and mouth. I'm sorry, it's all my responsibility. Rukia said sincerely, and bowed to Shiba Sora. Originally, I should have apologized to you long ago, but it was delayed until now because of my cowardice. I'm really sorry. Shiba Kong walked in front of Rukia and said lightly, I forgive you, just raise your head quickly. Ichigo was stunned when he heard this, and looked at Shiba Sokaku suspiciously, thinking that she was going to attack Rukia's face. Rukia was also stunned, and she didn't raise her head for a while. Shiba Kong shouted loudly, Hey, I asked you to raise your head and hear me. A large amount of flames emanated from behind Shiba Sora, so frightened Rukia immediately raised her head, while Ichigo and the others also took a few steps back. Ruki raised her head slyly and looked at Shiba Kong in horror. Although he was already prepared in his heart, he still felt scared in the face of Shiba Kong like this. That matter is not your fault. We will forgive you as long as you apologize to us. Now that you have said it, don't worry about it anymore. After Shiba Kong finished speaking, he laughed, and the hatred in his heart disappeared. Gansu sighed and thought that Rukia would be given a meal by Shiba Sora, but it was just so simple. By the way, let's celebrate tonight, eat meat and drink. Shiba Kong suggested. Ichigo has no interest in this, and Rukia doesn't particularly want to go. Shiba Soka reached out and grabbed Rukia's head, and asked gloomily, You guys will definitely go, right? Rukia and Ichigo nodded quickly, being frightened by Shiba Sora's lewd power. Shiba Kong turned his head to look at Luokan, and asked softly, Luokan, you should go too, this is the party I will hold to celebrate for you. The corners of Luokan's mouth twitched twice, and he was rejecting it in his heart, but he agreed after seeing the threat revealed in Shiba Konghei's smile. In this way, Luokan and his group all came to Shiba Konghei's house. Yiki, why are you here? I don't remember calling you here. Shiba Kong asked suspiciously after seeing Yiki's figure. Yi looked at Shiba Kong vigilantly, and replied indifferently, Just don't think I don't know about your thoughts. I won't let you do anything wrong with Luokan. Shiba Konghei's plan was broken, and he started laughing. At this time, Luokan came over and pulled Yi aside. Chapter 1002. Although Orihime briefly told him about Shiba Heian, he wanted to know more. Heian. When Yi mentioned Heian, her face was also a little sad. Luokan looked at Yi sincerely. He thought this matter was very important, so Yi must tell him. Yi nodded a little and began to talk about the past till the things. It turns out that Shiba Heian used to be the vice captain of Shiruro Yukitaki. Because Shuru was always in poor health, Shiba Heian took on everything and handled it very well. When Rukia came to their team, the other gods of death were very polite to her, but without any emotion, which made Rukia very confused. At that time, Shiba Heian treated Rukia like her own sister, which made Rukia very fond of Shiba Heian. Until one day, Shiba Heian's wife escaped from a mission, and when she woke up, she went on a slaughter. Shiba Heian felt very sad in her heart, but she still fought against her wife for the sake of the entire Slingting. But at that time his wife was already empty, so Shiba Heian wanted to kill her. At that time, Rukia Washi had been watching from the sidelines, and wanted to come forward to help, but was stopped by Yukitake Shuru. Later, when Shiba Heian's strength was exhausted, she was possessed by Shu. When she rushed towards Rukia, the scared Rukia picked up the Zanpakuto and aimed it at Shiba Heian. Zibo Heian rushed up with her last bit of consciousness, blood spilled all over the ground, and Rukia was also quite frightened. So, Rukia is also a victim. Why do the Shiba clan think that Rukia killed Heian? Luokan couldn't understand this. Yi Yi let out a helpless sigh. S-Ling Ting has the rules of S-Ling Ting. Back then, Shiro Yukitake wanted to make Rukia's contribution, so he claimed to the public that she killed Ku by herself. Rukia was indeed admired by the outside world, but also hated by the Shiba clan. It turned out to be such a thing. It's really good luck. Luo Chen sighed and suddenly thought of something. By the way, Aizen said before that he had done experiments in S-Ling Ting, and I remember that there was a cage in his room. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Yi Yi was stunned when he heard this. His eyes widened, and he didn't dare to speculate any further. Could it be that Aizen released that virtual bird? Luokan put forward his own guess. Congratulations to the host for answering correctly. You have obtained a bottle of refreshing medicine, which can increase your wisdom. The system's voice sounded from Luokan's mind. XXX. Luokan hadn't heard the system's voice for a long time, and its sudden speech really frightened Luokan. Refreshing, haha. Luokan didn't care about this kind of medicine at all. His pharmaceutical skills had already reached the level of perfection, and he was completely capable of producing such medicines. The system quickly explained that this drug can increase the development of the human brain, thereby making the body more flexible. Luokan didn't say anything, just threw the potion in his backpack. Zibo Kong waited for a long time and didn't see the two of them coming back, so he had to look for them. After finding them, he directly pulled them back to the banquet. 100 million. Chapter 1003. Luokan and others have also been with the Soul Society for a while, and they are about to leave, but before leaving, Luokan accidentally heard that Rukia has a sister. Luokan found Rukia and asked her about her sister. My sister. Rukia looked at Luokan with a bewildered expression. She didn't even know she had a sister. Luokan looked at Rukia suspiciously, feeling that she didn't want to lie either, so Sanuki and her found Byakuya Kuchiki for questioning. You're finally here. Kuchiki Byakuya still had that indifference on his face. Luokan shrugged his shoulders and said, it seems that you already knew we would come. Kuchiki Byakuya turned his head indifferently, with a smile on his face, but let Luokan and Rukia see it. In fact, he spread the news about Rukia's sister, otherwise who would dare to take such a big risk and talk nonsense. Seeing Kuchiki Byakuya, Rukia was still a little scared. She opened her mouth several times to ask something, but she didn't say anything. Luokan felt really uncomfortable seeing Rukia like this, so he had to ask her out. Do you know about Sister Rukia? Kuchiki Byakuya gave a soft grace, turned around and started to talk about the past. It turns out that Rukia's older sister used to live in Liushan Street, but at that time she really couldn't continue to feed Rukia, so she had to leave her behind. Later, Rukia's sister met Kuchiki Byakuya, and the two quickly fell in love and lived a good life. After Rukia's sister and Kuchiki Byakuya got married, Rukia's sister always thought about Rukia, so I asked Kuchiki Byakuya to find Rukia's whereabouts. Unfortunately, after many searches, Rukia was not found. In the end, Rukia's sister died of depression. Before she died, she asked Kuchiki Byakuya to find Rukia and not to tell her about her, because I don't think I deserve to be Rukia's older sister. No, I know my sister's suffering. Liuhun Street is such a place, and no one can change it. Rukia clenched her fist tightly, very unwilling in her heart. Kuchiki Byakuya sighed and continued to talk about the past. After the death of Rukia's sister, Kuchiki Byakuya actually found Rukia and brought Rukia back despite the opposition of the family. By the way, Kuchiki Byakuya had already married Rukia's sister regardless of the family's opposition, so when Rukia was brought into the house again, the family had a big conflict with him. Because of Kuchiki Byakuya's outstanding strength, the family shut up. Although the clan shut up, Kuchiki Byakuya knew that he could no longer fight against the clan. His mission was to carry forward the Kuchiki clan, so he decided to follow the rules no matter what happened in the future. I'm sorry, for the benefit of the family, I can only choose to sacrifice you. Byakuya Kuchiki sincerely apologized to Rukia. Rukia can also understand Kuchiki Byakuya, and she has never resented him in her heart. If he hadn't taken him home, she must be still in the soul world, wandering in a corner. Luo Chen said aside, so that's why you didn't save Rukia. I thought you hated her very much. Kuchiki Byakuya rejected it. Rukia and her older sister look very similar, so Kuchiki Byakuya also likes Rukia very much. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1004. Why do people in my house say that I was admitted to the house because I look like your wife? Rukia asked. Luo Chen didn't need to answer directly, this must be an order from Byakuya. Otherwise, who would dare to spread such gossip in Kuchiki Mansion, unless that person doesn't want to live anymore? Rukia blushed, she was a little excited, so her ability to think was also reduced, and she felt very embarrassed. The other thing is that your sister doesn't want you to know that she exists. I hope you can call me big brother without any burden and let me protect you well. Byakuya Kuchiki said lightly. Rukia slowly raised her head to look at Byakuya Kuchi 22. After hearing so many words from him today, her heart was finally able to open. Will you hate me? Kuchiki Byakuya was also determined to tell the truth, so no matter how Rukia reacted, he would accept it. Rukia shook her head, she would not hate Kuchiki Byakuya, she knew Kuchiki Byakuya also had his own difficulties, which she could understand from a long time ago. When did Rukia's collapse jade be injected into it? Luo Chen looked at Kuchiki Byakuya. Kuchiki Byakuya turned his face away in embarrassment. He didn't know when it was, and he should have asked Luoken this question. What? Why are you asking me? Luo Chen pouted, what does this have to do with him? Kuchiki Byakuya said lukewarmly, do you think I don't know what you and Urahara Kazuki have been studying all these years? This is not what he does, so he can confidently answer, it has nothing to do with me. In the end, what was waiting for Luoken was Kuchiki Byakuya's snort, which made Luoken very angry, exuding a huge spiritual pressure, raising the Zanpakudo to give Kuchiki Byakuya a good look. Luoken, don't worry, I should know how this happened. Rukia quickly grabbed Luoken, but she couldn't let him hurt her elder brother. Luo Chen and Kuchiki Byakuya focused their eyes on Rukia at the same time, and asked in unison, when was it placed? Rukia was a little scared to be stared at by two people so suddenly. She took a few steps back and smiled awkwardly, and replied, it should be when I entered the Kuchiki clan. I remember that someone gave it to me at that time. A thing, but then I couldn't find it no matter how I looked. Strange, did you eat Bengyu yourself? Luoken asked suspiciously. Rukia doesn't know this. Anyway, she met Urahara Kazuki with her own eyes, so there's nothing wrong with that. Forget it, I'll go back and ask Urahara Kazuki. Luo Chen said and was about to leave. Rukia suddenly stopped Luoken. After all, Rukia is the god of death, and Lingting is her home, so there is no way for her to let Luoken and them return to the world together. I see. Anyway, I already got the pass, and I can come back at any time. Luoken held up the pass and set it aside. Kuchiki Byakuya knows the importance of this pass, so it seems that Saijiguni really attaches great importance to Luoken. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1005. It was finally time to leave the Soul Realm. Almost all the gods of death came to send Luoken and the others, but Shinmu Jonpachi and Bachinliu did not come. Captain Shinmu probably doesn't like this kind of scene, so let's represent it. Yi Zhao said confidently. Ichigo said lightly from the side, Who cares about you coming to send it? Ichigo could hear clearly, and rushed forward to fight Ichigo, and Ichigo was not afraid at all. You two are really, the time is up, if you don't leave, you will stay here forever. Yi blocked between the two of them and pulled Ichigo towards the door of the different dimension. The corner saw Ichigo being dragged and immediately laughed at him, saying that he ran away because he was afraid, and he was a coward. What did you say? Ichigo struggled and was about to rush over to fight the corner, but he was repaired by Yuichi. Luokan sighed helplessly. It seems that although Ichigo's strength has increased, his personality hasn't changed much. We're leaving, so don't give it away, Tilda. Luokan said lightly. Seeing Rukia waving to them, Orihime turned her head and asked Ichigo, is Rukia really not going with us? Ichigo nodded. Their mission was to save Rukia, not necessarily to bring Rukia back to the world. It was her own choice to stay in the spiritual court, and that was enough. Luo Chen and his party walked into the gate, but they met the scavenger again, who was chased by a few people, and almost died in Wangquan. Didn't you say it wouldn't be dangerous to come back? Ichigo questioned Yaiki excitedly. Yi was also very helpless. Who knew that she would encounter a scavenger again, and she had no way to control it. After running wildly all the way, Luokan and his party finally ran out, but the door to this world actually opened in midair. What? Luokan and his party were dumbfounded, and let their bodies continue to fall. Just when Chen was about to summon the Nine Tails, a blanket flew towards them. With a swish, everyone was wrapped in blankets, so they didn't continue to fall. Welcome back, everyone is fine. Urahara Kazuki appeared in front of them and greeted them easily. Luokan waved his hand. This trip is really interesting, and Ichigo's ability has also been strengthened. I'm sorry, I didn't tell you about Bengyu beforehand. Urahara Kazuki already got the information and knew that Aizen took Bengyu away. Ichigo asked back, Diaresis, why didn't you tell us? Are you afraid that we would escape? Urahara Kazuki didn't say anything, just apologized again. Forget it, everyone is fine anyway. Let me go back and settle the account with Urahara Kazuki. Luo Chen said with a smile. The people around felt a chill behind them, and immediately agreed to Luokan. No one would mention this matter again, and Urahara Kazuki's face was also extremely ugly. After a while, Urahara Kazuki took them to Ishida Okejao Yulong's house. After Ishida Yulong left the flying carpet, he sent Chato and Orihime back one after another. However, the guardian asked Urahara Kazuki to put him beside the river. Luokan knew that this small river was where Gendi was killed, and Ichigo must have had a lot of insights. It doesn't matter, he actually went down here, I will protect Ichigo. Luokan followed Ichigo down, but just watched him quietly from a distance. Single quote. Ellipsis. Chapter 1006. The night was slowly getting deeper. Ichigo started walking towards the house, and Luo Chen chased after him. Hey, are you energized? Going home with a frown again will make Xiaoli and the others worry. Luo Chen said lightly. Ichigo was startled when he saw Luokan appearing from behind, and asked excitedly, why are you following me? You are not from my family. Luokan laughed lightly. In this world, his identity is Ichigo's cousin, how can he say that he is not his family? Liar, I don't know what props you used to tamper with their memory. Ichigo said dissatisfied. Luokan didn't say anything anymore, and went home with Ichigo directly. Sol was very excited after seeing Ichigo's return, and kept looking behind Ichigo, but after looking for a long time, he couldn't find Rukia. Where's eldest sister? Why didn't she come back with her? Sol asked excitedly, but he wanted to see Rukia in awe. Luokan replied, Rukia is staying in the Lingting, after all, that's her home. Sol's face was full of disappointment, and he felt that there was no hope in his life. Sister Rukia Tilda, Sol cried out in agony, only to be kicked by Ichigo and kicked Sol directly into the closet. Luokan shook his head helplessly. It seemed that Ichigo still hoped that Rukia would come back, After all, they had been together for so long. I'm back home too, you two should rest well. After Luo Chen finished speaking, he went to his room. As soon as Luokan arrived in the living room, he saw a wanderer drinking water. Brother Luokan, when did you come back, and what have you been doing these days? The wanderer immediately became excited when he saw Luokan, and was instantly drowsy. Luokan was stunned for a moment. Ichigo has a soul controlling his body, and he disappeared out of thin air for such a long time. How should I explain this? I'm back to my hometown. Yes, I'm back to my hometown. Luokan quickly repeated the system's words. The wanderer continued to ask with a look of anticipation, did Brother Luokan bring me a present? Luokan was stunned again. How could Lingting's things be brought back? Isn't this embarrassing, Luokan? Suddenly, Luo Chen had an idea, thinking of the refreshing fruit of the previous system reward, so he took it out and handed it to the wanderer. This is the fruit of my hometown, you can eat it. The wandering child took the fruit and was as happy as a child, holding the fruit tightly and looking at it, as if he had got some kind of treasure. Wanderer, it's so late now, hurry up and go to bed, or you'll understand that you should be late for school. The wanderer replied, tomorrow is the last day of summer vacation. Did Brother Luokan remember the wrong time? XXX. Luokan smiled awkwardly. Where did he remember wrong? He didn't remember at all, he just said it casually. Then Brother Luokan also rested earlier. I'll go back to the room to sleep first. After saying that, the wanderer ran to the room. Luo Chen breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the wanderer leave, then went to his room and lay on the bed to have a good sleep, but he hadn't had a good rest in Lingting these days. Ellipsis 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 ellipsis. Ellipsis 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 ellipsis. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1007. Luokan heard a knock on the door early in the morning, and Luokan, who had not slept enough, asked lazily, who is it? The voice of the wandering child came from outside. She knew that Luo Chen had come back and made a hearty breakfast, and now she came to wake Luo Chen up. Luokan really doesn't want to get up. Today is the last day of the summer vacation. It's rare to sleep in late, and it ends up being destroyed. Luokan got up helplessly, but when he woke up, he found that he was the only one besides the wanderer. What about Ichigo? Luokan asked suspiciously. The wandering child replied with a smile. Brother Ichigo has already gone out and said he has something to deal with. Shali went to practice swimming, and Dad went to work. Luokan smiled bitterly. Although Yuzi was a very cute little loli, Luokan really didn't know how to get along with her alone. Brother Luokan, I'll tell you a secret when you look like you're not in a good mood. The wanderer sat next to Luokan and watched Luokan eat. Luokan nodded. The secret of a wandering child at this age is nothing more than eating a delicious candy or seeing someone he likes. As a result, the wandering child's words frightened Luo Chenyi. She and Shali actually had a virtual battle at the time when Luokan and they were no longer. You said scary creatures. Luo Chen opened his mouth in surprise. The wanderer nodded and told the story of the incident. It turned out that Guanyin Temple came to Luokan to ask for advice in order to regain its popularity, but found that Luokan was not there, so he had to find a way by himself. Just when he was trying to figure out a way, Shali came back from the outside, and in the heart of wanting to be on TV, Shali agreed to the invitation of Guanyin Temple without hesitation. Aside from Shali, Xiaoyu and Jintai joined this organization out of nowhere. The wanderer was walking outside as usual, and happened to meet a stray cat that he had helped before, and the stray cat also remembered the wanderer, so the wanderer took it for a walk. At this time, many phantoms appeared in front of the wanderer, and Guanyin Temple and others also followed the clues of the phantom and came to the wanderer. At that time, the wanderer was really taken aback when he saw Shali. He thought she was very handsome, so he also joined the Guanyin Temple team. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. That guy, it's really abhorrent to let you guys do such a dangerous thing. Luo Chen clenched his fists tightly. Yuzi and Xiaoli have no fighting power at all, so it's too much for them to fight Shu. At that time, Xiaoyu and Jinta held Shu back, and those Shu's target turned out to be a wanderer, so they had to let the wanderer escape quickly. 0. The target is you. Luo Chen looked at the wandering child, and felt that the spiritual pressure on her body was a little higher than that of ordinary people, but she wouldn't be targeted. Moreover, Jinta and Xiaoyu are both there, so they should be virtual targets. The wanderer continued to talk. After the wandering child ran away with the stray cat, they unfortunately encountered a ghost again, but fortunately Xiaoli helped hold it back. On that day, the wanderer didn't know what she did, but she could meet Shu when she walked to a place, no matter how she ran. And then, do you have anything to do? Luo Chen asked worriedly, and quickly checked whether the wanderer had any injuries. The wandering child laughed happily and told Luokan that she was fine. 100 million. Chapter 1008. That day, when the wanderer thought everything was over, the stray cat turned into a huge tiger, and defeated the ghosts around the wanderer with its agile movements and super attack power. Big tiger. A stray cat becomes a big tiger. Although Luo Chen knew it was possible, he still had to pretend to be surprised, so he couldn't let the wanderer know about death. The wanderer nodded and continued. The big 330 tigers vanished after defeating the strange creature, and asked me and no one to talk about it. Luokan laughed, touched the wandering child's head, and said softly, I see, this must be a comic you read somewhere, right? That's not the real thing. When the wanderer saw that Luokan didn't believe it, his face flushed with excitement, and he said firmly, this is true, the wanderer will not lie. Of course Luokan knew this was true, but he would never admit it. I know that wanderers won't lie, but I just need to distinguish between display and imagination. These things are things that wanderers imagine, so it's not your fault to confuse them. Luokan comforted. When the wanderer heard Luo Chen's words, he was really hesitant, and he began to think about the events of that day. Coincidentally, Xiaoli came back, so the wanderer hurriedly asked if what happened that day really happened. Xiaoli glanced at the wandering child suspiciously, and answered without hesitation, what, I don't know, you are dreaming again. The wanderer felt embarrassed by what Xiaoli said, thinking that he was really dreaming. Ah, hate it, I actually took my dream as a reality. The wanderer shyly ran to the kitchen. Although Luo Chen didn't know why Xiaoli denied what happened that day, but he was finally saved, so he said to Xiaoli, come and have dinner together. Xiaoli shook her head, walked to her room, and stopped when she was about to reach the door. Brother Luokan, I'm sorry, don't take this matter to heart. Xiaoli said solemnly. In fact, she didn't want the wandering child to be in danger, so she denied what happened that day. Luokan smiled lightly and replied, well, I won't care, but you should relax a little bit, don't push yourself so hard, you can tell me if you need any help. Thank you. Xiaoli returned to her room after saying that. Luokan looked at Xiaoli's back and felt as if she knew something, but she couldn't tell her the whole thing, that way she would be worried. The wanderer ran out and brought a large portion of the food in front of Luokan. I'm really sorry, I said a lot of inexplicable things to Brother Luokan just now, so I'll take it as my apology. The wandering child's eyes radiated with anticipation, as if Luokan wouldn't forgive her if she didn't finish her meal. Luokan smiled bitterly, really wishing someone could come and save him. At this moment, he suddenly saw the soul and shouted loudly, look at the wandering boy, that rag doll is so dirty, please wash it for him quickly. The wanderer turned his head to see the soul, and immediately made a surprised sound, ran over, picked up the soul, and ran to the bathroom. Luokan kept apologizing to the soul in his heart, but for the sake of his own life, he could only do this. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1009. The lazy day passed quickly. Luokan ushered in campus life again, and Ishida Yulong miraculously was in the same class as them. "Why are you in our class, Yuryu Ishida?" Ichigo asked excitedly. Ishida Yulong pushed his glasses and replied disdainfully, "HMPH, with my grades, no matter which class I'm in, I can do it." Hearing Ishida Yuryu say this, Ichigo suddenly felt very angry, and when he was about to refute, Orihime and Chato also came in. "Ishida-san, you really came to our class, it's great," Orihime said happily. The head teacher also began to walk into the classroom and greeted the students to sit at their 22nd seat, and they were about to start the official class. Luo Chen sat on the seat and looked out the window, smiled contentedly, and finally lived such a peaceful life again. Not long after the class, there was an air of emptiness outside, and Ichigo, as the deputy god of death, naturally wanted to rush to destroy it. With a jerk, Ichigo stood up directly from Shisa, and then moved towards the door. After the head teacher finished writing, he turned around and saw Ichigo in front of him, and now Ichigo started running. "Wait, what are you doing, Ichigo?" the head teacher shouted loudly. "I'm going to the toilet." Ishida Yulong also ran out after Ichigo silently. The head teacher was very relieved of him, so he didn't ask. Orihime and Chadu also started running, and the head teacher asked again, "Do you two also have stomach pains?" Orihime replied embarrassedly, "Yes. But girls should be patient even if they have a stomachache." The head teacher said his crooked reasoning. At this time, Shui Shui saw that Ichigo and the others had all run out, and also stood up and tried to skip class, but was caught immediately. "Why can't I?" Shallow asked sadly. The head teacher thought for a while and replied, "It's nothing, I just don't want you to go out." Luokan originally wanted to enjoy the campus life, but now it seems that this campus is a little abnormal. Even the logic of the head teacher is so weird. Shu tilde. Luokan ran out like a gust of wind, and all the people didn't notice who ran out. Only when they reacted did they realize that Luokan was gone. When Luokan arrived, Ichigo had already dealt with the virtual. "Actually, there is no need for you to come. I can do it alone," Ichigo said confidently. Orihime smiled, scratched her head and replied, "Actually, I just want to experience the feeling of skipping class." Luokan shrugged helplessly. It seemed that he stayed with Ichigo directly for too long and was badly affected. Although Shu was defeated, it was rare for them to skip class, so they decided not to go to school for now. While they were wandering around, a false signal came again, and Ichigo ran out first, followed by Orihime and Chato. "How are you? Do you still feel nothing?" Luo Chen asked Shang Ishida Yulong. Ishida Yulong was very unwilling. Although he defeated Nimayuri, he had all the strength of his own. Now he has lost his qualifications as a Quincy. "Let me lend you some strength," Luo Chen said, grabbed Ishida Yulong's hand, and immediately transferred a part of his body to Ishida Yulong's body. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1010. Halfway through the power transmission, it was stopped by Ishida Yuryu. "What's wrong with you?" Luokan looked at Ishida Yulong suspiciously. Ishida Yulong said firmly, "I can't help you anymore now, so I can't hold you back any longer. I'll go back to school first." After speaking, Ishida Yulong walked towards the school. Luokan sighed helplessly. Is this the pride of the legendary Quincy master? It's really hard to do. Ichigo and the others came back after destroying Shu, and seeing only Luokan asked, "Where is Ishida Yulong?" Luo Chen pointed to the direction of the school. "He has already gone back." Ichigo and the others didn't think too much, thinking that Ishida Yulong just didn't like skipping classes and wanted to go back to study. "Then let's go back too." Ichigo suggested that they had nothing to do outside anyway, so why not go back to class? Orihime agreed. She was still thinking about the lunchbox at noon. Luokan looked at Orihime in embarrassment, not knowing what to say. Thinking of her dark dishes felt a little uncomfortable. "What's wrong with you, Luokan? your face is a little bad tilde. Orihime looked at Luokan suspiciously. Dust asked. Luokan quickly waved his hand and turned his head quickly. As soon as he saw Orihime, he could think of those dark dishes. In this way, Luokan and the others returned to the school, and the morning time was lost. Orihime was very happy to invite Luokan and others to have lunch together. XXX. Ichigo didn't have any opinion, but Yulong Ishida refused, and he felt a little uncomfortable. What's wrong with Ishida-san? After returning from the Soul Society, you've been obedient. Orihime said worriedly. Luokan sighed and wanted to tell them about Ishida Yulong's loss of strength, but he felt that it was not good, so he didn't say it in the end. You guys eat first, I'll take a look. After Luo Chen finished speaking, he ran out. Luokan caught up with Ishida Yulong, didn't say anything, just followed silently behind him. You don't have to accompany me anymore, go back and eat with them, and I'll be fine by myself for a while. Ishida Yulong said proudly. Luokan is a little worried, who knows what kind of thing Ishida Yulong will do. By the way, go to Kazuki Urahara after school. He is the first director of the Technology Development Bureau. He may have a way to help you regain your strength. Luo Chen suggested. Although Ishida Yuryu didn't want to use the power of the God of Death, it is more important to be able to regain his own power now. Diaresis well. Let's go after school. Ishida Yulong had a smile on his face, feeling that life was hopeful again. Orihime and the others appeared from behind. Seeing the atmosphere of the two of them, they asked, what's wrong with the two of you? Why did you suddenly become like this? Luokan and Ishida Yulong looked at each other and smiled. They would not let Orihime and the others know the secret of Ishida Yulong's loss of power. It's a secret, let's go to lunch now. After Luo Chen finished speaking, he walked towards the roof of the teaching building. Ishida Yulong immediately followed, and only Orihime was still guessing the secret between the two of them. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1011. After school, Luokan and Ishida Yuryu left the team and ran to Kazuki Urahara's store. Welcome, what do you want to buy in this store? Urahara Kazuki asked with a smile when he saw Luokan bringing Ishida Yulong over. Luokan took Ishida Yulong directly to the living room, which made Urahara Kazuki extremely embarrassed. Wait, there are guests inside. Urahara Kazuki's weak voice came. Luokan simply chose to ignore it. Besides him, who else would come to Urahara Kazuki as a guest? He didn't find a decent reason to lie. Thorn tilde. Luokan opened the door and saw Yi sitting in the house eating cakes and drinking tea, looking relaxed. I knew that there were no guests, and this Urahara Kazuki actually lied to me. Luo Chen sat down. At this time, Urahara Kazuki also caught up, and seeing that Luo Chen had already sat down, he had no choice but to entertain the two of them. Luokan was too lazy to talk nonsense with Urahara Kazuki, so he went straight to the topic. How much do you know about the ability of a quencher? Kazuki Urahara glanced at Yulong Ishida after hearing the words of Quincy, and instantly understood what was going on. Not much. After all, I haven't done experiments with Quincy like Nimayuri did, so it's not very likely to help them regain their strength. Urahara Kazuki answered without concealment. When Yulong Ishida heard this, his face instantly collapsed, thinking that he really had no ability to fight anymore. Don't you have an ability test machine? Help him test it soon. Yi assisted by the side. Luokan stared at Kazuki Urahara instantly. If he didn't agree, Luokan would definitely give him a good look. Urahara Kazuki was forced by Luokan's arrogance, so he had to take Ishida Yulong to measure. Luokan originally wanted to follow along, but was stopped. I invented it, and I refuse to visit. Luokan pouted, and if he doesn't look at it, it's fine if there is a result. Urahara Kazuki left with Ishida Yulong, leaving only Yaiki and Luokan in the house. When Luokan looked at Yi again, Yi had already turned into a black cat. Ah, why do you like this look? Luo Chen has been wanting to ask this question, but now that Yi Yi is no longer wanted, why do you keep looking like a cat? Yi Yi replied with a happy face, because this is how you and I looked when we met in this world. I hope to start anew with you. The corners of Luokan's mouth twitched a few times. Even if he started over, he wouldn't start over with a black cat. He didn't have that strange habit. What the hell happened to Ishida Yulong? I can't feel any reiatsu on him. Yi Yi said seriously. Luokan sighed. Anyway, Yi Yi was not an outsider, so she might be able to help, so she told about the battle between Ishida Yulong and Nimayuri. I didn't expect that he would use all his strength to take revenge. The self-esteem of this Quincy master is really too high. Although Yi Yi admits that self-esteem is a good thing, Ishida Yulong can only say that he is arrogant. He can obviously use the power of falling dust to complete his revenge, and he has to sacrifice his own strength to take revenge himself. Luokan shrugged helplessly. What can he do? He can only choose to respect. It would be bad if Ishida Yulong did something more serious. After a while, Ishida Yulong came back first. Ellipsis. Chapter 1012. Where's Kazuki Urahara? Luokan asked. Ishida Yulong replied, he is doing research, so I will come back first. After a while, Urahara Kazuki also came back. His face was not very good looking, and the atmosphere suddenly became very solemn. How is it? Is there any other way? Luokan asked. Yaiki and Ishida Yuryu's eyes turned to Urahara Kazuki at the same time. I saw Urahara Kazuki shaking his head. Although Ishida Yulong still has the power of a Quincy in his body, it is very difficult to trigger this power again. Is there really nothing that can be done? Luo Chen didn't believe it, so he lent his strength to Ishida Yulong. Urahara Kazuki sighed helplessly. He had no other way to deal with this result. I don't need to say any more, I'll say goodbye first. Ishida Yulong said with a deep face, stood up and hurriedly walked outside. Luokan looked at the back of Ishida Yulong leaving and sighed deeply, and said loudly, you idiot, even if you tell a lie. Yi Yi climbed onto Luo Chen's body. She could understand Luo Chen's mood, but if the power disappeared, it disappeared. There is no way to change this matter. Why don't you give them a special training, and let me see how much they have grown in the Soul Society? A strange smile appeared on Urahara Kazuki's face. Luokan suddenly had a bad premonition. Seeing Kazuki Urahara's expression, he knew what conspiracy he was planning. Nothing. They will definitely encounter stronger enemies in the future. The current special training is to prepare for the future. Urahara Kazuki has already decided, and today I just use a reason to tell Luokan, otherwise it will be bad if he destroys it. Yaiki also agreed, and she also agreed with Urahara Kazuki's proposal. Although Ichigo's current strength has increased, it is not cold enough, and Chato and Orihime also need to increase their strength. As for Ishida Yulong, maybe they can still put him. The power is revived. Forget it, you can come as you want, as long as you don't go too far. Luo Chen knew by looking at the expressions of the two of them that they had already communicated, otherwise there would be no tacit understanding. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Urahara Kazuki replied with a smile. Yes, but I have to ask Lord Luokan for help. Luokan knew that there was nothing good, and asked Urahara Kazuki to tell all his plans. At this time, the door on the side opened, and 3 people walked in. Tibetan, Lilin, Ziba. The 3 of them are my newly created helpers, so let them carry out a special training for Ichigo and them. 0. Luo Chen looked at the 3 people, feeling strange. You created a modified soul again? Luo Chen asked loudly. Urahara Kazuki smiled awkwardly. He didn't expect Luokan to care about this question, so he quickly replied, yes, but I will take care of them and make sure they won't do anything dangerous. Luokan doesn't actually have an opinion, but just wants to see with his own eyes how Urahara Kazuki made them. Next, Urahara Kazuki told Luokan all the contents of the special training, and asked him to keep it secret from Ichigo and them, and then let him participate in the operation together. 100 million. Chapter 1013. Luokan reluctantly agreed, and not long after returning to Ichigo's house, he felt an unusual spiritual pressure coming from the direction of Orahime's house. Ichigo, let's go. When Luokan came outside, he saw Ichigo, and the two immediately walked together. When Luokan and Ichigo arrived, Ishida Yuryu and Chato also felt it. After checking around Orahime's house, they didn't find anything unusual, so they knocked on the door of Orahime's house 330. Dang dang tilde. After Ichigo knocked on the door, no one responded, and there was no movement in the house. Let's break the door and break in, Chadu suggested, and his fist was ready. Luokan hurriedly stopped Chadu, although this was the fastest way, but doing so would cause a huge disturbance, and when the time came, people around would not be able to tell. Leave it to me. Ishida Yulong took out the sewing kit from his body, and then took out a needle and stretched it to the keyhole. I saw Yulong Ishida stab the keyhole a few times, and the door really opened. So you still have such skills. Luo Chen looked at Yulong Ishida at the same time, as if he was doing something bad. Ishida Yulong blushed and quickly explained, but Luokan and the others didn't listen at all. Let's hurry up and find Orihime. Ishida Yulong quickly changed the subject and walked into Orahime's house first. Luo Chen and a few others followed closely behind. After a few inspections by Luo Chen, there was nothing unusual in the house, but there was an abnormal spiritual pressure. Where have I seen this feeling of spiritual pressure and falling dust? I suddenly remembered that the special training that Kazuki Urahara said was coming. What do you know? Ichigo looked at Luokan. Luokan laughed awkwardly, and quickly said, I see, Orihime must have been kidnapped. Ichigo and the others were speechless for a moment. There was no need for Luokan to tell them in this situation. They were able to confirm that Orihime was kidnapped. The question is who took Orihime away. Luokan sighed helplessly. He didn't expect the special training that Kazuki Urahara said would start so quickly, and he was really caught off guard. Here is a letter, come and see. Ishida Yulong found a letter on the floor. Ichigo and Chadu hurried over, while Luokan walked over slowly, seeing the letter's notes and knew that this was Kazuki Urahara's self. The letter reads, if you want to save your companions, play a game with us, and I will call you tomorrow morning. Ichigo looked at the letter angrily, and said angrily, what are you doing? You swiped us, hurry up and return Orihime to us. Luokan comforted Ichigo, since the other party said so, let's cooperate with them, after all, Orihime is in their hands. Just like that, a few people returned home, and Luokan looked helpless. He didn't know what the hell Kazuki Urahara was doing. The next day, a few people in Luokan really got a call, and then a few people skipped class again without hesitation. Please rush to Amber Park now, the time limit is 5 minutes. If the time passes, I will kill that girl. Lilin's voice came from the phone. Ichigo was still asking the other party loudly, but Lilin just hung up the phone. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1014. Let's go, Amber Park is a long way from here. Luo Chen knew that this must be the plan that Urahara Kazuki came up with, so he cooperated to persuade Ichigo and others. Ichigo and the others did not hesitate. For the sake of Orihime's safety, a few of them set off directly. After a frantic run, the four finally arrived at Amber Park, and it was at this time that the park's phone rang. Hey, here we are, put Orihime back. Ichigo shouted loudly to the phone. But there was only Lilin's laughter on the phone. She enjoyed this kind of game very much, and Luo Chen felt a little helpless here. XXX. 22 inches if you want to save that girl, go to the shopping street. There will be new news there. This time the time limit is still 5 minutes. Lilin hung up the phone again. Ichigo punched hard, and shouted in a hurry, damn, you dare to play with me, I must find this bastard and beat him. Luokan smiled wryly. If Ichigo could really defeat Kazuki Urahara, he wouldn't have to do any performances. Although they were not reconciled, Luokan and the others still ran to the shopping street. Although they arrived within 5 minutes this time, the call was received by someone else. You lose. We already arrived at the allotted time, how could we lose? Ichigo roared extremely impatiently. Lilin replied with a smile, you are not the first to answer the phone. This time I will give you some punishment, which is to kill that girl. Stop. Ichigo shouted nervously, but there was a beeping sound on the opposite side. Damn, I actually hung up the phone. Ichigo said willingly. In this way, they lost their clues, and it was impossible for them to want Orihime. What should we do now? Chato asked Ishida Yu. Ishida Yulong helplessly shrugged his shoulders. Although his brain is useful, it is not omnipotent. He can't do anything without clues now. Just when everyone was at a loss, the phone rang again. Bingo, it's game time. This time you have to rush to this address within the stipulated time, or you will cut off the girl's hands and feet this time. When Luokan heard such a line, he felt like no one else was there. He could even think of Lilin standing in front of Orihime with a tool. We still hurry up and act. Although they didn't kill Orihime last time, they can't be sure this time. Luo Chen urged. Ichigo froze in place, thinking. What's wrong with you, Ichigo? What are you thinking about? Where are we going this time? Ishida Yulong asked excitedly. Ichigo said the location, and it turned out to be Kazuki Urahara's grocery store. How did they know about Kazuki Urahara's store? Are there any traitors among us? Ichigo asked the question in his heart. What the hell is Kazuki Urahara doing? Why did he lead them into his shop? It's really puzzling. The last few people still ran into Urahara Kazuki's store, and Urahara Kazuki also pretended not to know. Jingle bell tilde. The phone inside Kazuki Urahara's store rang. Ichigo hurried over to answer and said excitedly, we have fulfilled your request, hurry up and return Orihime. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1015. Lilin's laughter came from the phone again, telling them that they had successfully passed the game, and since that was the case, give them a little reward. Go to this girl's house at night, and I'll let you meet. He hung up the phone after he finished speaking. Ichigo and the others had no choice but to believe Lilin's words. What the hell is going on? Urahara Kazuki pretended to be ignorant and asked Ichigo and the others. When Luokan saw Kazuki Urahara performing, he felt a bit of groaning, but Ichigo and the others, it's not easy to attack in front of a few. By the way, don't you have that machine that can capture the other party's Reiatsu? Quickly take it out and track their location. Luo Chen rushed to Urahara Kazuki with a defiant look. Urahara Kazuki calmly walked to the side, took out a huge device, and fiddled with it on the phone. After a while of fiddling, Urahara Kazuki regretfully told them that they couldn't capture it, and that the other party didn't use Reiatsu when they called. Cut, it looks like your invention isn't very good tilde. Luokan knew that Kazuki Urahara didn't really use the machine, just to anger him on purpose. Urahara Kazuki can endure everything, but he can't stand others saying that his invention is not good, and his temper suddenly rises. I will definitely fix this thing. Urahara Kazuki got on fire and worked hard again. Luokan was stunned for a moment, for fear that Kazuki Urahara would forget his original plan, so he quickly asked Ichigo and the others to go back. Go back? But isn't Urahara Kazuki helping us investigate the location of the other party? Ichigo asked suspiciously. Luokan quickly replied, he will definitely notify us when he has news, and the other party said just now that he will let Orihime come back, so let's go to her house and wait, and then we will be able to wait and see. Ichigo thought that what Luokan said was reasonable, so he turned his head and ran in the direction of Orihime's house, but Luokan stopped for a while. Hey, you won't forget the plan, will you? Luo Chen looked at Kazuki Urahara, who was working hard, and asked suspiciously. Urahara Kazuki suddenly turned his head with a smile on his face, and said confidently, well, my acting skills are very good, you were also deceived by me. It seems that I really have a talent for acting. When Luo Chen heard this, he gave Urahara Kazuki a fist, and he even lied to himself. It was too much. He was going to stop acting because he cooperated so well. Urahara Kazuki hurried to please Luokan, and after a lot of good words, he comforted Luokan. Diaresis, what about Yi Yi? Why haven't I seen her for so long? Luo Chen asked suspiciously. He usually sees Yi Yi when he comes here. Urahara Kazuki's expression suddenly became serious, and he told Luo Chenyi that he had returned to the Soul Realm. Why didn't she tell me when she went back? When did she leave? Luo Chen asked in surprise. Urahara Kazuki replied. Not long ago. Good, something happened in the Soul Society, so she is investigating. This time the enemy is not so easy to deal with, so we have to hurry up and specialize them. Training. Luokan felt the seriousness of the matter and nodded vigorously. He would also try his best to cooperate with Ichigo in their special training. Since that's the case, I won't keep you, so leave now. Urahara Kazuki saw that Luokan agreed and immediately issued an order to evict the guest. Chapter 1016. Luo Chen felt cheated, snorted coldly, stood up, waved his sleeves and walked away. Walk slowly without sending. Luokan came to Orahime's house angrily. When he arrived, Ichigo and several people were already sitting in Orahime's house. This kind of technical work must be done by Ishida Yulong. Luokan turned his attention to Ishida Yulong. Ishida Yulong's face blushed. It seems that the last time Luokan and the others really regarded themselves as strange people. No, the door was open when we came this time, as if it was waiting for us on purpose. Ishida Yulong hurriedly explained. Luo Chen nodded suspiciously. In fact, it doesn't matter who opened it. Orihime will be back in a while. The sky was getting dark, and Orihime walked in from outside. Hey, Kurosaki-san, Ishida-san, Chato-san, and Luokan-san, why are you all in my house? Orihime asked suspiciously. Seeing Orihime like this, Ishida Yuryu said immediately, it seems that her memory has been erased, and she doesn't remember what happened before. Luokan shrugged his shoulders. Although the Tibetans disguised well, he still saw the flaw, that is, there was no love in the eyes of the Tibetans watching Ichigo. It doesn't matter, as long as people come back. Luo Chen said quickly, and then observed everyone's performance. Ichigo and Chadu's reaction was nothing, and Ishida Yulong's reaction was a little unusual, but after he lost his strength, he couldn't sense Reiatsu anymore. Ishida Yulong looked at Orihime and felt a little strange, but he couldn't tell what was strange. By the way, you guys haven't had dinner yet. I'll cook dinner for you. Orihime said excitedly. When Ishida Yulong and the others heard that Orihime was going to make dinner for him, their expressions changed instantly, and they quickly refused, but Luokan agreed so that the plan could continue smoothly, and forced a few people to stay with him. We can't leave Orihime when she just came back, maybe the enemy will attack her again. Luokan said seriously. Ichigo thought that what Luokan said was very reasonable, but he also didn't want to eat the dark dishes made by Orihime, so he was very tangled. At this time, Orihime came out with food, all of which were taken out of the refrigerator. Please use it. Orihime looked at the crowd with a smile. Everyone bit the bullet and ate it, and their faces became very ugly, but Luo Chen didn't move at all. Orihime looked at Luokan with a smile and asked him why he didn't eat it. Luokan wouldn't give in so easily. He didn't want to eat dark food, so he said, you just came back. You must be very hungry. I'll give you all to eat. Speaking of Luokan, he pushed the dark dishes in front of Orihime. There was a hint of embarrassment on Orihime's face, which was full of smiles. It was obvious that the Tibetans didn't want to eat them. You're welcome, it's delicious, eat it quickly. Luo Chen kept urging, but Ichigo and the others were not in the mood to care about the two of them because they ate dark food. The Tibetan face became more and more ugly. In order to avoid eating dark food, he had to start planning in advance. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1017. The Tibetan picked up the person next to him and laughed sinisterly, and Chadu was the innocent poor man. What's wrong with you, Orihime? Let me go quickly. Chadu shouted in surprise. Ichigo and Ishida Yulong also stood up excitedly. They finally realized that something was wrong with the Tibetan Reiatsu. Luokan was also defeated by their reaction ability, and Ishida Yulong didn't care. After all, he lost his ability, and Ichigo's ability to investigate is so poor, which is really disappointing. The Tibetan returned to his original appearance, tightly restrained Chadu's head, and then ran outside. Stop, don't run. Ichigo and the others quickly chased out. Lilin was startled by the Tibetans who suddenly ran out, but she quickly reacted and asked Ziba to open the door to the other dimension. When Ichigo chased after them, the door was already open. Lilin, Hirohito Hitoba stood at the door and watched Ichigo proudly. Who are you guys? Hurry up and exchange Chato and Orihime. Ichigo shouted excitedly. Lilin smiled proudly and said mysteriously, if you want to save them, come and play games with me, they are the prizes for winning. After speaking, the three people jumped into the different space and disappeared. Damn it! Ichigo once again watched his companion disappear from his eyes, clenched his fists tightly, and felt angry at his incompetence. Ishida Yulong's face is also not good. He has no ability and doesn't know what he can do now, but his self-esteem makes him not allow to help anyone. Since they said they still want to make games, then Chadu and Orihime will be fine. Let's go back and wait. Luokan suggested that there would be no news today anyway. Ichigo narrowed his eyes and looked at Luokan, always feeling that he was different from usual. The usual Luokan would definitely rush out at the first time, and he would actively try to find a way, but today's Luokan was so listless. Tell me, do you know something and want someone to save them? Ichigo asked sternly. Luokan smiled awkwardly, thinking that Kazuki Urahara's plan had been discovered, but now it seems that he overestimated Ichigo's IQ. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. It's nothing, I just believe in Urahara Kazuki's tracking ability. I believe that he will be able to repair the machine tomorrow, and then we will be able to find the enemy's nest. Luokan said naturally. Ichigo nodded vigorously. He would definitely beat the enemy to the ground and dare to bully his comrades. Just like that, Luokan and the others went home, waiting for tomorrow's news. After one night, Lu Chen, Ishida Yuryu and Ichigo gathered again in Kazuki Urahara's grocery store. How is it? Haven't you repaired it overnight? Ichigo asked impatiently. Urahara Kazuki replied with a smile. I'm sorry, this machine has not been used for a long time. It is a bit troublesome to repair. Ichigo said to Luokan, what, this guy is not trustworthy at all, let's find it ourselves. Speaking of Ichigo, he stood up, Urahara Kazuki's face sank, and he scolded Ichigo seriously, he just couldn't listen to others saying that his invention was not good. 100 million. Chapter 1018. At this moment, the phone rang, Urahara Kazuki picked it up, and Lilin's voice came from the opposite side. XXX. Our game is about to start, are you ready? Luokan smiled bitterly. It was originally planned that they should not have called at this time, but Lilin and the others also found that Urahara Kazuki was excited, so they called ahead of time. What game? Returned Chato and Orihime quickly. Ichigo shouted excitedly. Lilin said over the phone, if you want to save the two of them, come to the museum at night, we'll play games there. After he finished speaking, he hung up the phone. Ichigo was still sulking here, complaining that Lilin was always like this without waiting for anyone to finish her words. Luokan smiled bitterly. No enemy would wait for him to finish his words, isn't that stupid? Okay, it's time for you guys to go to school. You should have heard what you said just now. It's night time for the game, so let's go. Kazuki Urahara started to drive them away again. Luo Chen didn't mind this time, but he was a little worried about not seeing Yi. When Luokan was about to leave, Urahara Kazuki whispered to him, "Don't worry, Yaiki's ability is so strong, she will definitely not have any trouble." Luo Chen nodded slightly and led Ichigo and Ishida Yulong as back at school. Because Orihime didn't come to school for 2 days, Long Zegui was a little worried, so he came to ask Ichigo if he knew something. Ichigo was worrying about the enemy, so his tone was not very good, and he said impatiently, "I don't know anything, don't bother me." Long Zegui was also short-tempered. He punched Ichigo without hesitation, calling him an idiot loudly for not caring about his classmates at all. Ichigo couldn't tell Ryazaki that Orihime was gone, so he was very troubled, and the two started arguing. Luokan quickly stepped forward to stop the two. "Longs, I believe Orihime will be back tomorrow, so don't worry." Long Zegui looked at Luokan with a puzzled face, and asked how he knew. Now it was Luo Chen's turn to be embarrassed, sweat dripping from his head, scratching his head to find a lame reason. Because Orihime eats too much dark food and has a bad stomach, so tomorrow will definitely be better. This time, Long Zegui felt more relieved, thanked Luo Chen, and made a face to Ichigo, and then walked away. "This guy." Ichigo looked at Long Zegui's back with a depressed expression. Ishida Yulong said lightly from the side, "If you don't behave naturally, it will cause trouble to the people around you, so please pay attention to your emotions." Ichigo was always upset, and now he was even more annoyed when he heard Ishida Yulong say that, but he thought that what Ishida Yulong said would be gone, so he had to be sullen. Luokan smiled wryly, what he was doing to meddle in his own business. Suddenly, Ichigo had a sad look on his face and asked, "Can we really save the two of them tonight? Last night, they couldn't rescue Orihime, and they even took Chato in, which shook Ichigo's confidence a little." Ishida Yulong stood up in time and poured a lot of chicken soup into Ichigo, making Ichigo excited as if he had been beaten with chicken blood. "Okay, we must succeed tonight." The surrounding classmates all focused on Ichigo, and Luokan silently stayed away from Ichigo. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1019. A day of study time has passed again. In the evening, Ichigo, Luo Chen and Ishida Yulong gathered at the entrance of the museum. "Since everyone is here, let's go in." "Let's go." The soul suddenly emerged from behind Ishida Yulong. Luokan looked at the soul suspiciously and asked, "Why are you here?" Ishida Yulong pushed his glasses and said, "I brought him here because some things must be stored on him." Ichigo didn't want to know why the soul was here at all, so he urged a few people to enter the museum quickly. Luokan and a few people pushed open the door of Museum 22 and walked in. Looking at the surrounding exhibits, they felt a little different, but they didn't observe it carefully. After observing from room to room, nothing unusual was found, let alone Orihime and Chato. "The other party won't lie to us, right?" Ichigo became impatient and found nothing after searching for so long. At this time, Lillian's laughter came out, and she guided a few people to the center of the museum. When Luokan and Ishida Yulong walked into the central room, they felt a different kind of energy, but Ishida Yulong didn't know what it was. "Looks like they have started," Luo Chen said lightly, looking forward to the content of this test. Soul heard Luokan's words and asked, "What started?" Luo Chen waved his hand and said nothing, and continued to walk forward. The three people in a puppet walked for a long time without finding any danger, but they didn't remember how long the museum was. "Is the museum really so big? Why haven't we gone out yet?" Ishida Yulong raised a question in his heart. Ichigo also began to suspect, but he looked around and found nothing, so he continued to walk forward. This time, they saw that the floor of the room in front was actually empty, and they could only go back to the previous room. "So that's the case." Luokan smiled lightly. He now knew what Lilin and the others planned, and he also clearly knew that the trap in front of them was just to stop them from moving forward. Ishida Yulong picked up the soul, took out a rope from his chest, and tied it aside. You actually put so many things in my body. Soul didn't even know that Ishida Yulong had transformed himself. Ishida Yulong said easily, just take out the cotton inside you and you can hold a lot of things. Luokan couldn't help laughing. It seemed that this was the reason why he brought his soul, to avoid being discovered by the enemy. Ishida Yulong tied the rope to the pillar beside him, and then continued to explore the various rooms, hoping to find some flaws, but they came back after a circle. Have we been in circles for so long? Ichigo asked impatiently. Ishida Yulong nodded vigorously. The current situation told them that this was the case, but it filled his heart with doubts. Luokan felt that this kind of test was a bit boring, so he might as well give them a hand. Luokan suddenly ran out and shouted loudly, Oriji, Chadu, so you are here. Ichigo and Ishida Yuryu heard the falling dust after saying that. She ran over quickly, and Lilin quickly created an illusion when she saw that the situation was not right. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1020. When Ishida Yuryu and Ichigo arrived, Chato and Orihime were locked in 2 glass jars. Chato, Orihime. Ichigo excitedly rushed to shoot them, but it caused smoke. Ishida Yuryu and Ichigo's vision gradually became blurred, and they fell with a bang. Lilin appeared at ease after seeing the 2 of them collapsed, and complained to Luokan, really, what do you want to do? Luokan laughed, and replied indifferently, it's just boring to walk through the maze. If you don't set up some traps, there's no way to satisfy them. I see, it's annoying. Lilin complained and left. Luokan brought Ichigo and Ishida Yuryu back to their original room and Soul looked at the 3 in surprise and asked what happened. Luo Chen was stunned for a moment. It turned out that the Soul didn't follow up just now. It's nothing, they just fell into the enemy's trap and passed out. I have given them the antidote tilde. It didn't take long for Ichigo and Ishida Yulong to wake up. The 2 of them looked at each other suspiciously, not knowing what was going on. Soul proudly told the 2 of them what happened just now, with a miraculous appearance, as if he had rescued Ichigo and Ishida Yuryu. You idiot, don't pretend to be arrogant, it's annoying. Ichigo couldn't help but complain. Soul also retorted unceremoniously, and the 2 quarreled like this, and then walked in opposite directions. Since the 2 of them went in opposite directions, this made Lilin embarrassed, and Luokan was also tired of this kind of game, so he didn't stop him. Ishida Yulong has been observing the situation around him vigilantly. When he saw the space distortion, he instantly understood what was going on. Soul, Ichigo, you 2 come back soon, I already know. Ishida Yulong shouted loudly. Ichigo and Soul immediately ran back and asked Ishida Yulong what to do. Luokan looked at Ishida Yulong with interest, and his guess was correct. The smartest person was indeed Ishida Yulong, and he couldn't count on Shengbu and Soul at all. For the sake of safety, lend me this thing. Ishida Yulong brought the death transformer from Ichigo. Ichigo didn't say anything, just didn't know what he wanted to do. The 3 people and the puppet continued to walk forward. When they reached the 3rd room, flames appeared in the room in front of them. Facing the flames, Yulong Ishida walked in without hesitation, which surprised Ichigo and Soul. Ishida Yulong smiled proudly. As he expected, these traps are simply hallucinations, and there is no danger at all. Diaresis let's go, we will see the enemy soon. Ishida Yulong took the lead and walked forward. Ichigo and Good Soul followed closely, and when they entered the room, they saw Lilin. We have already walked out of the maze, we have won this game, hurry up and return Orihime and Chato. Ichigo said loudly. Lilin didn't look scared at all, she waved her hand. Ziba appeared from behind Ishida Yulong, and then restrained him. The game isn't over yet. Lilin said proudly. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1021. Ishida Yulong was also well prepared for such a situation. He took out the death switch and pressed Ziba, and saw Ziba instantly fell to the ground, and a righteous soul pill appeared. Yishunmaru, Ichigo said suspiciously. Lilin hurried forward to retrieve the Yihunwan, her brows furrowed tightly, and she loudly asked Ishida Yulong what she wanted to do. The game is over, it's time to return our companions, Ishida Yulong said proudly. Luo Chen also echoed, yeah, the game is over, it's time to replace our companions with us. Lilin was very unhappy, thinking that if it hadn't been for the trouble, they would never have escaped from the labyrinth they had set up. I'll give it to you, Lilin said, pointed to the side, and ran away quickly. Ichigo and Ishida Yuryu hurried over and released Chato and Orihime. After some questioning, they didn't remember anything. But Ishida Yuryu, how did you spot that labyrinth? Ichigo asked suspiciously. Ishida Yulong pushed his glasses and replied seriously. It's thanks to you quarreling with the soul. This maze is a 3x3 space. As long as we advance 3 rooms in a row, we will encounter traps, and I see it. The distortion of space, so I thought of it. Ichigo felt a little dizzy when he heard this, but he ignored it and praised Yulong Ishida's ability. Luokan naturally seized this opportunity to educate Ichigo, let him use his brain more when encountering things, and don't just go on a rampage, this is very likely to stay in the labyrinth for the rest of his life. Really, you are so annoying. Now that everyone is all right, let's go home, Aikihu urged impatiently. Anyway, the crisis was resolved, and he didn't want to listen to Luo Chen's lectures. Just like that, Luo Chen and his group went back to their respective homes, and met in class the next morning. There is a physical education class today. Luokan looked at the timetable and sighed, this kind of outdoor class is really popular. Ichigo looked lazy, Orihime stepped forward to cheer Ichigo, Ishida Yuryu was still sitting in his seat as usual, the transition remained silent. The class bell rang, and the classmates rushed to the playground, but Ichigo and the others were stopped by laughter. Let's continue the game today. Lilin's voice came out. The corners of Luokan's mouth twitched, and he finally came across a class that he liked, but he actually wanted to play some boring games with them. Ichigo and the others naturally refused, but Lilin ignored them. Before get out of class ends today, if you can't find out who the pretender is, then your classmates and teachers will all disappear. Please work hard. Hey, what do you mean? Ichigo asked loudly, but no one answered him. XXX. Ishida Yulong was still taking advantage of it, analyzing the current situation. According to the information we have now, there must be an enemy among us, just as the enemy turned into Orihime back then. Then what should we do? Ichigo continued to ask. Ishida Yulong pushed his glasses and replied, I don't know. This answer really disappointed everyone. I thought Yuryu Ishida had come up with a good solution. Ishida Yulong coughed awkwardly. Since they went home yesterday, they can't confirm what happened to each of them. The enemy is very likely to take advantage of this time to change their identities, so I can't trust anyone except myself. Ellipsis. Chapter 1022. What should we do now? Orihime had an embarrassed look on her face. She didn't want to doubt her companions, but if she didn't find out her enemy classmates and teachers, she would suffer. Luokan shrugged helplessly, making the game a little more interesting. Do you really think that there are enemies among us, and can the enemies really do anything to the students? Luokan's remarks made a few people suddenly realize, yes, why is what the other party says is what they say, are they too moved by this? It's great, so that we don't have to doubt each other. Orihime said excitedly. Ishida Yulong is not so optimistic. Since the enemy can issue a notice to them, then they will definitely be able to do it. Let's act together, Ishida Yulong suggested. Orihime said embarrassedly, I want to go to the toilet. Ishida Yuryu is also embarrassed. There is only one girl, Orihime, so many boys can't go with her. Go ahead, be careful. Orihime ran out immediately. In fact, she was a little worried. After all, the enemy was in the dark, and she didn't know when they would attack. When Oriji came out of the toilet, she met Long Zegui, and just as the two were about to say hello, Long Zegui disappeared in front of Oriji. Hee, you guys are racing against time. If you still can't find the pretender, all the classmates will really disappear. Lilin's voice sounded. Orihime was frightened and ran to the classroom to tell them what happened just now. It seems that the enemy is not joking, Ichigo said solemnly, and looked at the rest of the people. The corner of Luokan's mouth twitched. It was very annoying to move the classmates to another place, and Lilin, this little brat, has no sense at all. Let's start looking. First, let's ask each other questions. Everyone asks that they and the other person know the problem, and then prove their identities to each other. Luo Chen suggested. Ishida Yulong shook his head, thinking that this method is not feasible. After all, the enemy has already mastered all their information, and even they can know it in school, what else they don't know. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Then what do you say? Luokan pouted, disliking this unlovable Ishida Yulong very much, and seriously suspecting that he is a Tibetan. Speaking of Tibetans, it seems that there is no such deepness. He is usually the most talkative. Ah, why don't you talk anymore? Luo Chen looked at a few people helplessly. If they didn't talk, how could they investigate? Ishida Yulong suddenly pointed to Luokan and said seriously, from the very beginning, you have been disrupting our line of sight and leading us to a strange direction of thinking. You are the pretender. Orihime and Ichigo echoed, ah, so classmate Luokan is the enemy. Show your true shape, and I will definitely teach you a good lesson. Luo Chen went up and gave the three of them a fist, so that they dared to doubt themselves again. It would be better to think more about who the Tibetans are when they have this time. 100 million. Chapter 1023. Luokan's behavior made Ishida Yulong and the others more suspicious, but Ichigo suddenly thought of something and asked Luokan. Do you remember when you came to my house? Luokan was really stopped by Ichigo's question. Who would care about such a thing? September 27th. The system gave the answer in a timely manner, and Luo Chen quickly answered. Orihime and the others immediately turned Sansanchi's gaze to Ichigo, but Ichigo's face showed an embarrassing expression. Kurosaki-san, you don't know the answer, right? Orihime asked. Ichigo's face changed even more ugly, as Orihime said, he didn't know the answer, and he also thought of the question on a whim, just to see how Luo Chen would react. What an idiot to ask a question that I don't even know about. Ishida Yulong said with disgust. Ichigo had nothing to refute now, so he lowered his head unwillingly. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Several people looked at each other, and no one spoke. Can't the few of you liven up the atmosphere? It's really uncomfortable. Ichigo finally couldn't bear it anymore and shouted loudly. From this, Luokan and several people can confirm that Ichigo is real, because according to Ichigo's personality, when he sees something uncomfortable, it will erupt directly. Who the hell is the pretender? Hurry up and stop for me. Ichigo pointed at a few people and shouted loudly. Luokan shrugged helplessly. If the Tibetans just stood up like this, it would not be a special training. If they encountered a real enemy, Ichigo and the others would have been wiped out long ago. At such a time, you have to rely on your intuition to identify. Everyone, let's use your senses. Ichigo suggested. Luokan laughed embarrassingly. It's really a shame that Ichigo can come up with such a bad idea, and it's even more difficult for Orihime and the others to cooperate with Ichigo to point out each other. The result was that the four people pointed at each other, and finally became a circle, which had no effect. Hey, what are you pointing at me? Ichigo growled loudly when he saw Yuryu Ishida pointing at himself. Ishida Yuryu pushed his glasses, turned around and excitedly asked Orihime why he was pointing at him. And Orihime turned around and asked Chadu why he was referring to him, while Chadu asked Ichigo why he was referring to himself. You guys really don't have anyone anymore. Are you elementary school students? Luo Chen was really disappointed with their performance. In fact, the Tibetans have already revealed their flaws, while others have not noticed. The flaw is that Chadu actually calls Orihime's name directly, while the usual Chadu is called Inoue-san. When Luokan saw it, he immediately reminded the Tibetans, and he quickly changed his tune. Seeing that minutes passed by, Ichigo and the others still didn't make any progress. At this time, Li Lin's voice came out. You have to hurry up, or all your classmates will disappear. Ichigo and the others hurried to the window and watched as most of their classmates disappeared, while the others were still disappearing one after another. Damn guy, you have the ability to come to us, don't embarrass our classmates. Ichigo shouted excitedly, but no one responded to him. Ishida Yuryu was still relatively calm, and patted Ichigo on the shoulder to tell him not to be provoked by the enemy, which caught the enemy's trap. Ellipsis. Chapter 1024. But those guys are innocent, how can? Ichigo's eyes burst into flames, and there was no way to calm down. At this time, Yi and Shufeng rushed over from outside the school, and galloped past the glass in front of Ichigo. Ichigo and a few people immediately greeted Yuichi, but Yuichi ignored it. Mr. Yaiki, what are they going to do? Orihime asked suspiciously. As soon as Luo Chen heard Yi, he went to 22 to look at it, but when he looked again, Yi was no longer there. Chato, what did you see just now? Ichigo found that Chato was frightened, and immediately asked a question. Chadu pretended to be calm and replied, a woman and a ghost. You are the pretender. Ichigo pointed at Chadu righteously and said. Chadu smiled embarrassedly, refusing to admit it, and wanted to beat up Ichigo. HMPH, don't argue, Chadu won't be frightened by such a scene. Although the information in our investigation is very comprehensive, you haven't been to the soul world, so you don't know what Yi really looks like. Now the Tibetans had nothing to say, and changed back to their own appearance, telling them that they had won the game. Luokan sighed helplessly. It seemed that Yi was still very important, and he helped Yi protect them once again. Hey, hurry up and return all our classmates. Ichigo shouted loudly, and he found that all the people on the playground were gone. Lilin's smug laughter echoed in the air, telling them that their classmates and teachers were fine and that they would be able to see them tomorrow. It's too exaggerated to even move everyone to another place, Luo Chen said lightly, in order to reassure Ichigo and the others. The classmates and teachers are all gone, but Chadu is missing again. Chato, hey, where is Chato? Hurry up and return him. Ichigo shouted loudly again. However, this time no one paid any attention to him, leaving Ichigo alone to sing a one-man show. Since the teacher and classmates were gone, Luo Chen and his group came to Kazuki Urahara's store to find a way, but when they arrived, they found that Kazuki Urahara was gone. Strange, why is there no one left? Could it be that even Mr. Urahara was kidnapped by the enemy? Orihime asked a simple question. Luokan was extremely denial in his heart. If Kazuki Urahara was kidnapped, then several of them would have been killed long ago. At this time, Li Lin's voice sounded. Ha ha ha, do you really want to know their whereabouts? You should be familiar with this thing. Lilin took out Kazuki Urahara's hat. This next care they all believed that Urahara Kazuki had also suffered a poisonous hand. Only Luo Chen said from the side. No, we don't know this thing, let that guy fend for himself. Luokan knew what the hell they were doing again, but Luokan didn't want to continue playing with them, it was so boring. Lilin's face sank, she didn't know how to answer the words she had planned for after a series of so many episodes. Just as he was about to attack, Ichigo shouted. Hurry up and return Chadu. Lilin started to be arrogant when she saw that they were all so self-willed. Ellipsis. Chapter 1025. Ichigo and the others became anxious when they saw that Lilin didn't speak or act, and Ichigo took the lead in attacking Lilin. Shu tilde. Lilin disappeared in the air, and Ichigo hit the sky. Hey, who would attack so rashly, please say hello in advance. Lilin was really frightened just now, if it wasn't for Yujiba, she would definitely have been hit. Ichigo replied indifferently, what about you, we are enemies, hurry up and hand over the tea, or I will kill you. Ishida Yuryu and Orihime also showed firm looks, standing behind Ichigo as his backing. At this time, Kazuki Urahara was very sad to hear that they didn't mention their names at all. He didn't think that he was so unimportant to them. Whatever you want, if you want to save your companions, come in. Lilin said that a door in another dimension appeared behind her. Lilin rushed over first, and then the door kept getting smaller and smaller. Let's go Tilda. Ichigo took the lead and rushed in, followed by Orihime and Ishida Yuryu. Luokan hesitated. This time, he didn't know what the hell Kazuki Urahara and the others were doing, and he didn't want to play with them anymore. At this moment, a person appeared behind Luo Chen, and pushed Luo Chen hard, and just like that, Luo Chen also entered the door. What are you doing? Why did you come in so slowly? Ichigo complained dissatisfiedly. Luokan gave him a nosy look. He didn't come in because he wanted to come in. If he knew who pushed him in, he would definitely love him fiercely. Lilin, Ziba and Tibetans appeared in front of the four of them, while Chadu was bound on a pillar on the side, and a layer of flames surrounded him. Okay, this is the last game. Go save your partner. If you don't rescue him within the specified time, he will be burned alive. Lilin said proudly. XXX. Ichigo frowned tightly and ran towards Chadu first, but this time the flames were real. He was forced back by the heat before he even got close. Leave it to me here. 3 days to form a shield, I refuse. Origi activated the power of Dunshin Liuhua and opened a shield in front of her body. Under the protection of the shield, the three successfully reached Chadu's side. Diaresis Chado, wake up soon, we're here. Ichigo shouted loudly, while Ishida Yulong went to help Chadu untie, but the rope was attached with Reiatsu, and he couldn't untie it at all. Orihime told Ishida Yuryu to get out of the way and leave it to her. A lonely shield, I refuse. The ghost turned into a sharp blade and flew out, cutting the rope of the tea fairy at once, and successfully rescued the tea fairy machine. Luokan smiled faintly. It seems that this time, it was Orihime's ability to be tested. Kazuki Urahara, Good Jiao, should be satisfied by now. As Chadu was rescued, the flames around them dissipated. We won this game, what's your purpose? Ichigo was very annoyed by the three of them being so teased. Lilin said with a smile, the game is not over yet, you have forgotten one person. Orihime patted her head and said, Mr. Urahara is still in their hands. Ellipsis. Chapter 1026. This time, Ichigo has already learned a lot. He has already guessed that the real man behind the scenes is Kazuki Urahara, so he has never cared about his safety. Enough, come out, what do you want to do? Urahara Kazuki, Ichigo asked coldly, pulling out his Zanpakuto and pointing at Lilin and the others. Kazuki Urahara didn't hide anymore when he saw that he was exposed, and appeared in front of Ichigo and the others. Oh, I didn't expect that this time. Ichigo, who is out of his mind, found the truth. It's really hard for you. Urahara Kazuki said lightly. When Ichigo heard what Urahara Kazuki said, he was very angry, and he was about to attack Urahara Kazuki with his Zanpakuto. Urahara Kazuki smiled faintly and began to explain the purpose of this game. Of course, it's to play games with you, to exercise the abilities of several of you and help you improve your strength. Ichigo and a few people were still angry, and they couldn't agree with this matter. Luokan sighed and said, don't you find that every game has a very clear purpose? Ichigo was stunned by what Luo Chen said, turned to look at Luo Chen, and asked in disbelief, did you know from the beginning? Luokan shook his head helplessly. He said it so clearly, Ichigo was still suspicious. Urahara Kazuki said proudly, of course, Luokan is the special guest this time. If it weren't for him, the problems you encountered would be much simpler. What do you mean? Ichigo still didn't understand what Kazuki Urahara was talking about. Luo Chen was really defeated by Ichigo's innocence, and began to explain that every time he played, he was guiding the direction, while Ichigo and the others were just passively playing the game. It turns out that you are the mastermind behind this game. Yihu looked at Luokan angrily. If he hadn't been able to defeat Luokan, Yihu would have started a long time ago. Urahara Kazuki suddenly became cold and said seriously, "This matter was my idea at the beginning. Who made your strength so poor, and even lost your own ability?" When Urahara Kazuki said these words, he looked at Yuryu Ishida. Ichigo, Orihime, and Chato also turned their gazes to Ishida Yuryu, and none of them found that Ishida Yuryu was incapacitated. "So it's not that you don't need it, it's that you can't use it." Ichigo frowned tightly. No wonder he was reluctant to fight the last time he was asked to fight. Ishida Yuryu clenched his fists tightly, and told Ichigo and the others about the battle with Namori in the Soul Realm. "What? It's not that I no longer have the ability, you should tell us," Ichigo said nonchalantly. Ishida Yulong's reaction was also very intense. "I'll tell you what to do, it won't cause more people to worry about me. But if you don't tell them, you will put them in danger during the battle, don't you mind even then?" Urahara Kazuki said indifferently. "If you don't even know the abilities of your teammates when you are fighting the enemy, this will definitely make the battle difficult." Ishida Yulong clenched his fist tightly and lowered his head, unable to say anything to refute. The atmosphere suddenly became serious, and Orihime and the others looked at Yulong Ishida with concern, not knowing what to say to comfort him. Chapter 1027. Kazuki Urahara didn't want to see that the atmosphere suddenly became so serious. The purpose of his game was to hope that Ichigo and the others could easily and happily improve their abilities, but it didn't seem to be very effective. "Let me introduce these three helpers to you again. First of all, Lilin, she can cast illusions on the enemy, thus effectively dragging the enemy." Lilin took a step forward with great cooperation and waved at Ichigo. Her illusion made Ichigo suffer a lot. Ichigo pouted, he didn't want to remember those unbearable memories at all. "This is a Tibetan. He can transform into anyone, and his ability can be imitated. I believe you already know how powerful he is," Urahara Kazuki said proudly. Ishida Yulong nodded. "The Tibetans' transformation skills are really worthless. They have lied to them many times. If it wasn't for Yi's unexpected help, they would not have discovered the flaws of the Tibetans. The last one is Ziba, he can teleport in time and space, and he opened this door." Urahara Kazuki pointed to the door behind Ichigo. Everyone turned their attention to Ziba, and Ziba was a very shy soul. He pulled up the zipper on his head directly, not daring to look at everyone. Luokan thought that someone pushed him in before, and asked loudly, "Ziba, you brought me in, right?" Ziba took a few steps back after hearing Luo Chen's question, afraid to answer. Seeing that he didn't speak, Luokan thought it was acquiescence. Just as he was about to teach him a lesson, Lilin stood in front of him and said, "Don't bully Ziba, he's the one who arrested you." Luokan followed Lilin's hand to look at Kazuki Urahara, and found an embarrassed look on his face. "It turned out to be you." Luo Chen clenched his fists and walked over to Kazuki Urahara to clean up. The Tibetan asked worriedly, "Aren't you afraid that he will destroy us?" Lilin was dumbfounded. Just now, she was thinking about saving Ziba, and she forgot about such an important matter, with a worried look on her face. "What, are you made by Mr. Urahara?" Ichigo asked suspiciously. Luokan had already finished teaching Urahara Kazuki, and answered Ichigo's doubts. "Yes, they are soul-modified souls, but they are much stronger than souls." Ichigo nodded, remembering the indescribable sadness in his soul, which was obviously made for combat, but in the end he had no fighting ability at all. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Mr. Urahara really worked so hard to create 3 of them for special training for us. Orihime said sincerely. Urahara Kazuki recovered instantly, with a solemn expression on his face. "The 3 of them weren't created just for you, but there is a crisis in this world." When Ichigo and the others heard this, they immediately became nervous, waiting for Kazuki Urahara to continue speaking. And Luokan has a bad feeling that there will be another war in the future. Yi was investigating a soul hunter before, and found out that she was sucking the souls of living people. Fortunately, Yi stopped her. Ichigo and a few people had never heard of soul hunter and asked what it was. Soul hunters are a kind of undead with super powerful abilities. They can improve their strength by absorbing the souls of living people. However, they have internal regulations that they cannot absorb the souls of living people, so they have been ignored. Will them? Urahara Kazuki explained. 100 million. Chapter 1028. Luokan frowned slightly. Since the soul hunters have begun to absorb the souls of the living, the battle is really not far away. I don't know much about soul hunters, but Lilin and the three of them can feel the spiritual pressure of soul hunters, so they will need your help. Urahara Kazuki said. Luo Chen and the others nodded and asked back, why can't the soul detect the spiritual pressure of the soul hunters 3 or 40 hunters? Luokan felt that the life of the soul was too boring, and wanted to find something for him to do, so that he would not be mourning all day long. Urahara Kazuki shook his head. He didn't know about this, maybe he lacked something in common. Since everyone has agreed to help, let's take them back. Urahara Kazuki said lightly. Ichigo was stunned for a moment. He already had a soul in his house, but he didn't want to raise another modified soul. HMPH, I don't want to be with you yet. Lilin said arrogantly. Originally, only one of the three of them was a girl, but she was assigned to Ichigo's house. Ichigo was also very angry when Lilin said this, so she turned her head and left. Ichigo, Urahara Kazuki called out resentfully, but this sound frightened Ichigo, and obediently turned around and took Lilin away. Lilin was naturally reluctant. Although Ichigo was reluctant, but with Urahara Kazuki here, he could only take Lilin away. Miss Orihime, please give me more advice. The Tibetan said to Orihime. Orihime nodded and took the Tibetans home. In the end, only Ziba and Chadu were left. The two of them didn't communicate much, but their actions were very tacit, and they turned around and left together. Ishida Yulong was a little unwilling. He also wanted to help, but he had lost his strength. Just live a normal life, and your strength will come back eventually. Urahara Kazuki said helplessly. Ishida Yulong clenched his fists, turned and left. Luokan and Urahara Kazuki walked out of the door of another world one after another, and actually came to Urahara Kazuki's store. At this time, Ichigo and the others had already left first. Is there any news from Yi? How can I help? Luo Chen asked. Urahara Kazuki shook his head. Now Yoichi is actively collecting information, but the effect is not good, and it is impossible to detect the true purpose of the soul hunter. Is there any movement in the soul society? If there are fewer souls in this world, there should be action in the soul society, but now they are just investigating, so there is not much information. It seems that this matter is not so easy to solve. Luo Chen sighed. Urahara Kazuki smiled faintly. No matter what, things will always have an outcome. What they have to do before is to keep getting stronger. If there is any news from Yi, you must inform me quickly. Luo Chen said. He was still a little worried about Yi's safety. Urahara Kazuki nodded. It was getting late, he was about to close, so he started to expel Luokan. Luokan has nothing to do here anyway, so he left happily. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1029. As soon as Luokan got home, he heard a loud noise from Ichigo's room, so he hurried to Ichigo's room to check. What happened? Luokan asked suspiciously. Ichigo looked at Luokan with an embarrassed expression, and impatiently threw the rag doll aside, and sat down on the bed. Get up quickly and help me find a suitable body. Lilin shouted loudly from the side. Luokan looked at the two of them suspiciously, but still couldn't figure out what the situation was. Ichigo explained impatiently. In order to keep them from being discovered at home, Mr. Urahara just called and said that they can enter the doll's body. Luo Chen nodded. This proposal is very good. How could there be such a big commotion? Lilin pretended to be aggrieved, pointed at the toys on the ground and cried, "Look at how ugly these dolls are. How can I use them? This is a big event for me in my life." Ichigo said disdainfully, "Che, it's just a rag doll. If you're not satisfied, you can find it yourself." Lilin was also arrogant. She got into the toy box angrily, tugged at it randomly, and threw some toys out, hitting Yihu on the head. "Hey, I told you not to go too far," Ichigo shouted angrily. Lilin didn't care at all, and accidentally dropped her whole body into the toy box. At this time, the Wanderer advanced in. "Brother Ichigo, why is your room so messy?" the Wanderer asked suspiciously. XXX. Luokan quickly blocked the toy box to prevent Lilin from being discovered by the Wanderer. And Ichigo was also nervous, and pushed the wandering child to go outside. "Hey, you've always kept this rag doll, that's great," the Wanderer said happily when he saw the rag doll on the headguard. Luokan looked at the rag doll, a rag doll in the shape of a chicken. It looked very ugly. I really didn't know why Ichigo had such an ugly rag doll. 1HU was also stunned, and after taking the doll off his head, he showed an expression of disgust. "Who is this rag doll?" Luokan asked suspiciously. The Wanderer happily brought the chick doll and replied, "This is the birthday present I gave to brother Ichigo before. At the time, I thought Ichigo didn't like it, but now it seems that Ichigo likes it very much." Luokan laughed awkwardly. He didn't expect the Wanderer's aesthetics to be so unique. It was really embarrassing. "Hurry up and let me out. I'm going to be suffocated." Lilin made a sound in the toy box. The Wanderer looked around the room suspiciously, looking for the source of the sound. "Brother Ichigo, have you heard the girl's voice?" the Wanderer asked sincerely. Naturally, Ichigo couldn't admit it, and answered with a guilty conscience. "What a girl's voice. There's no chance of a girl in my room. You must be too tired. Well, go back and rest." As Ichigo said that, he pushed the Wanderer out, and then held onto the door to prevent the Wanderer from coming in again. The wandering child was pushed out before he finished speaking. He was very depressed and left angrily. He even forgot what he was going to say to Ichigo. Luokan released Lilin when she saw the Wanderer leaving. Lilin gasped for breath as soon as she came out, but she was almost suffocated to death. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1030. Do you want to murder? Lilin excitedly questioned Luokan and Ichigo. Ichigo quickly stepped forward to cover Lilin's mouth and told her to keep her voice quiet so that the Wanderer would not hear it again. It would be hard to say then. Lilin became arrogant and asked Ichigo to continue to help her find the puppet, otherwise she would scream and call the Wanderer back. "I see, hurry up and shut up." Ichigo looked at Lilin angrily, wondering why he brought such a troublesome guy home. Luokan shook his head helplessly. Who made Ichigo's perception not so sensitive? He could only ask Lilin to find the location of the soul hunter. Just like that, Ichigo helped Lilin find it for a long time, but Lilin was still not satisfied, and Ichigo became impatient again. Luokan teased, "Why don't we use the birthday present that the Wanderer gave to Ichigo? Although it doesn't look good, it's still very meaningful." Ichigo and Lilin both refused at the same time. Ichigo didn't want to see such an ugly toy running around in front of him every day. Luo Chen smiled lightly. Lilin watched Ichigo for a long time and couldn't find a suitable one, so he asked him to go out and buy one for her, but Ichigo lay impatiently on the bed and asked Lilin to buy it herself. Lilin's temper came up, and she was about to attack Ichigo, but she slipped, stepped on a toy and fell on the bed, and her body happened to touch Ichigo's death transformer. Lilin's righteous soul pill jumped out of the righteous skeleton, in the middle of the chicken-shaped puppet. Ah tilde tilde, Lilin screamed loudly when she saw her body. She couldn't accept this reality, and she actually entered one of the ugliest dolls. Luokan couldn't help laughing out loud. It's really not as good as a human being. In the end, Lilin really entered into this little chicken's puppet. Ichigo tightly covered Lilin's mouth, he was afraid that the wanderers and the others would hear. Lilin kept beating Ichigo. If it wasn't for him, she wouldn't have become like this. This is far from Lilin's imagination. Ah, can't you put it back into another puppet? Luokan asked. Lilin said with a sad face, if I can, I don't have to do this anymore, I'll be this guy. After saying that, Lilin beat Ichigo again. Soul was awakened, and a head emerged from the drawer and shouted loudly, who is it? Don't you know they are sleeping? Lilin showed a disdainful expression after seeing the soul, and continued to beat Ichigo. The resentment in her heart could not be fully vented. Seeing Lilin, Unda couldn't help laughing, and asked, where did such an ugly rag doll come from? What a joke. When Lilin heard this, she immediately turned her head to the soul, staring at the soul, and when she rushed up, she was beaten violently. Ichigo was at leisure, and explained to the soul, this is Lilin, the one sent by Kazuki Urahara to sense the soul. All right, hunter for me. You must get along well. Lilin had already beaten her soul, and said arrogantly, who wants to get along with this useless guy? Soul also felt the same way. How could he say that he was also Lilin's senior, and Lilin's treatment of him like this was too much. It seems that life will be lively in the future. Luo Chen said lightly, seeing the expressions of Soul and Lilin, Ichigo was in trouble. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1031. While Lilin was making a fuss, a soul hunter appeared, and she was about to suck the souls of the living. Ziba and the Tibetans immediately rushed over with Chato and Orihime, and Ishida Yulong also noticed it, so they rushed over. Come on. Lilin calmed down. She still remembered that her mission was to detect soul hunters. Ichigo's reaction was slow for half a beat, and he asked suspiciously, what's going on, do you still want to make trouble? Lilin went up with a blow, and said angrily, it's the enemy, the soul hunter has taken action. Luokan hurriedly asked Lilin to take him there, and Ichigo became nervous. After turning into a god of death, he ran out of the house with Lilin. Soul watched them all run away. He felt very lonely, so he had to hide in the drawer and continue to sleep. Shut up! Ichigo shouting loudly, the action of the soul hunter was stopped in time. The soul hunter changed her expression when she saw Ichigo coming, and pushed the living person aside. In fact, she didn't want to suck the soul of the living person. Ichigo, the god of death, will never let you eat the souls of living people. Ichigo said firmly, holding his Zanpakudo. The soul hunter took a step back, watching Lu Chen and Ichigo vigilantly. Oh, there's nothing to discuss, I don't like fighting. Soul hunters are looking for an opportunity to escape. Ichigo and Luokan blocked all the roads, and Ishida Yulong and others rushed over. Seeing that so many people knew that fighting was inevitable, the soul hunter immediately summoned the doll. Gate, please, help me defeat them. A puppet composed of flames and magma appeared in front of Ichigo and the others, and the fierce flames on his body told people that he was not to be messed with. Ichigo, be careful, this guy is not easy to deal with. Luo Chen said worriedly. Ichigo didn't care so much, he just slashed at Gate, but the effect was bad. No matter how Ichigo attacked the puppet Gate, Gate quickly recovered from the wound. After so long, it can be said that Ichigo was not injured half a point, but Ichigo was exhausted. Ichigo, don't attack anymore, your attack has no effect. Luo Chen said loudly. Unwilling, Ichigo is still attacking. At this time, Gate also launched a counterattack. A huge fireball gathered in Gate's hand and threw it in Ichigo's direction. With a boom, a huge hole was punched out on the ground. Ichigo was frightened when he saw such a violent attack, and Luo Chen quickly pulled Ichigo back and called out the 9 tails for defense. The world is no better than S-Lingting. It cannot release Reiatsu bullets at will, nor can it cause too much movement, otherwise it will attract attention. Yang, they seem to be scared, do we need to continue the attack? Gate asked the soul hunter. Fangye didn't want to fight, so he asked Luo Chen and others, let's leave quickly, you can't beat Gate. When Luo Chen heard this, he smiled faintly, his nine tails would not lose to such a puppet. Kuei, come on. Luo Chen gave an order, and the nine tails rushed out in front of everyone, roaring at Gate. The violent wind blew the flames on Gat's body, as if it would be extinguished at any moment. What a powerful force! Fang Yi frowned tightly, but there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1032. Although Nine Tails gave Gate a slap in the face, Gate was not afraid. More flames erupted from his body, and he rushed towards Nine Tails. Everyone, be careful, don't be affected. Luo Chen reminded everyone loudly. Ishida Yuryu felt very powerless when he watched the battle between Gate and Nine Tails. He wanted to rush out to do something, but his strength did not allow it. Just as the Nine Tails were crushing Gate, another soul hunter appeared beside him. Utagawa. Yoshino saw Utagawa a while later, and hurriedly asked Gate to switch his target. After receiving the order, Gate threw away the Nine Tails, aimed at Utagawa and released a fireball. The raging fire seemed to burn everything up. Although I don't want to hurt you, don't blame me if you won't go back with me obediently. Utagawa said and summoned the doll Fuido. Fuli Duo is a snake-shaped doll, with a long body hovering over Utagawa's body, and immediately rushed out after seeing the fireball rushing towards him. With a swoosh, Fuido directly smashed the fireball in half, and the fireball flew towards Ichigo and Ishida Yulong respectively. 3 days to form a shield, I refuse. Orihime stood in front of Ishida Yulong to block the attack for him. Ichigo was shocked by Folio's strength, and when he reflected it again, the fireball had already arrived in front of him. Ichigo, everyone shouted worriedly. The 31 Destruction, Red Cannon. With a bang, the fireball was successfully blocked, and an explosion occurred in front of Ichigo, and it was Rukia who blocked the fireball. Yo, you're still not mature enough, it seems that you need more experience. Rukia looked at Ichigo proudly. Ichigo immediately returned to normal the moment he saw Rukia, and recovered from the shock. Why are you here? Ichigo asked loudly. Rukia said very naturally, because of the soul hunter, I was ordered to help you. Ichigo snorted coldly and became arrogant, saying that it would be easier without her help. Rukia got angry when Ichigo said that. If it wasn't for her, Ichigo would have been shot. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Just like that, Rukia and Ichigo quarreled. It's enough for you two. Luo Chen couldn't help shouting loudly. Now he was facing two soul hunters, and he still had the time to quarrel. Yoshino was already tied up by Utagawa when they were arguing. I advise you not to struggle, I don't mind taking you back after hurting you. Utagawa said indifferently. 0. Fang Ye frowned tightly, looking at what Luo Chen wanted to say, but finally closed his mouth, ready to talk to you. Tian Chuan left. Wait, don't run. Ichigo's fighting power is full now, and he wants to avenge the revenge just now. Utagawa glanced at Ichigo indifferently, and called out, Wei Duo. Fuido immediately understood, exuding a gloomy aura, launched an attack in the direction of Ichigo, and summoned many snakes. Ah! Orihime yelled when she saw the snake, she couldn't stand such a creature. Ichigo slashed frantically, but it was useless. 100 million. Chapter 1033. Luokan quickly cleaned up these annoying snakes with 9 tails, and when he was about to attack Utagawa, he had already left with Yoshino. Damn, let them run away. Ichigo said unwillingly. Rukia sneered on the side and said, even if you catch up with them, you will only get beaten. If it weren't for Luokan, you would definitely be beaten down. XXX. Ichigo couldn't hear such exciting words the most, and raised his fists to argue with Lucin Fortikia. Rukia, however, turned her attention to Lilin and asked suspiciously, what's the matter with such an ugly puppet? Lilin burst into tears when she heard this. She didn't have time to observe Ziba and the Tibetans in the battle just now. Now that they look better than her, she couldn't accept it, let alone Rukia. Such straightforward language. Rukia saw Lilin crying and smiled awkwardly, not knowing what she did wrong. Orihime rushed up and hugged Rukia like a bear. She was very welcome to return to this world, so that they could live together again. Yeah, Miss Rukia looks very popular, the Tibetan said lightly. Rukia saw a flash of light in the Tibetan man's eyes, and a look of envy appeared on his face. Orihime understood Rukia's feelings, but this small bag was treasured by her, and even Rukia couldn't give it away. So cute. Rukia couldn't help sighing. Luo Chen looked at the Tibetans, then looked at Lilin. The gap was obvious, and he sighed helplessly. There's another one here. Rukia turned her attention to Ziba again, and Ziba turned her head shyly. Lilin saw that Rukia was very interested in both Ziba and the Tibetans, and she was very jealous, and counted all these faults on Ichigo's head. It's all your fault, it's all your fault, it's all your fault. Lilin kept beating Ichigo. Luokan shrugged helplessly. Since the soul hunters have all left, they should also leave. In this way, Luo Chen and the others returned to their home. The next day, Luo Chen and others came to the school on time for class, but the atmosphere in the classroom became very heavy. Ah, what's the situation? Why is there such a strong resentment? Ichigo stood at the door of the classroom and didn't have the courage to open the door. Just at this moment, the door opened automatically, and Orihime greeted Luokan and Ichigo affectionately. Orihime, what's going on inside? Ichigo pulled Orihime aside and asked in a low voice. Orihime smiled awkwardly, pointed to the classroom, and said, actually, it's Ishida Yuryu who seems to be concerned about the things he didn't help with last night. Ichigo breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. He believed that Ishida Yulong would definitely get through this difficulty, so he didn't need to worry at all. Luokan doesn't think so. Ishida Yulong has a very strong self-esteem. How can he accept that he is a drag? Ichigo took the lead and walked into the classroom. He originally wanted to have a few words with Ishida Yulong, but he gave up this plan after seeing the resentment emanating from Ishida Yulong. A day of study began. It was originally a lazy morning, but it was interrupted by the sound from outside. Ichigo tilde hello tilde. Not only Ichigo, but also other classmates looked out, and saw a person wearing clothes from the last century waving at the Ichigo class. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1034. He was wearing flared pants, and he was calling Ichigo's name. That person is definitely a freak. We have to stay away from Ichigo in the future. Quote katakana middle dot 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 quote. The classroom suddenly boiled over, and there were discussions about the relationship between Ichigo and outsiders. Ichigo stretched out his head and saw that it was Renji Asanjing, and he was also wearing a very strange outfit. No wonder it caused such a commotion. Ichigo couldn't sit still anymore, so he rushed out of the classroom and took Asanjing out of school 22, and Luokan followed. Why are you here, and what's the matter with this strange dress? Ichigo asked excitedly. Thanks to Sanjing, now the whole school thinks Ichigo is a strange person. Sanjing said disapprovingly, of course I'm here to carry out a mission. This area is under my management, so I came to say hello to you. The corners of Yehu's mouth twitched a few times, and he said unceremoniously, hey, I'm not very familiar with you, right? Don't come to interfere with my life. Sanjing Renji was also very excited when he heard this. He didn't want this kind of treatment. The atmosphere suddenly became very tense. The two of them were willing to fight at any time, and it was still on the road. Would you two share the occasion? It's on the road here, and so many people are watching. Luo Chen kindly reminded them both. Ichigo and Asanjing looked around and immediately became embarrassed. They didn't expect so many people around them to watch them. Anyway, that's it for now, the safety here is up to you. Luo Chen said politely. Asanjing Renji nodded confidently and replied, don't worry, leave it to me. Ichigo snorted coldly, turned his head and walked towards the school. Wait for Ichigo. Asanjing Renji actually caught up. Luo Chen couldn't understand Asanjing Renji's behavior. Ichigo treated him like this, but it's really puzzling that he has to chase after him. Just when Luoken was about to catch up, a person suddenly fell from the sky. With a bang, a huge pit appeared on the ground. Hanataro. Luoken looked at the person in front of him in disbelief, rubbed his eyes and saw that Hanataro was smiling at him. Huataro embarrassedly said hello to Luoken. It was great to meet someone he knew in this world. Why are you here? Luoken asked suspiciously. Hanataro replied, because I made a mistake before, so this time I have to perform a task to make up for my mistake. This is a special permission given to me by Captain Uno Hanaritsu. Luoken nodded. The previous matter was thanks to Hanataro's help. Although Luoken has tried his best to help Hanataro clarify, but the impact is still there. I'm sorry, I've affected you. Luo Chen sincerely apologized. Hanataro shook his head. It was his own choice to help Rukia escape, so he didn't blame anyone, and that's why he was able to come to this world to see Luoken. Then what is your mission in this world? Investigating the matter of the Soul Hunter. Esslington is very concerned about this matter now, and each team will send someone. Hanataro answered truthfully. Luo Chen nodded. It seemed that the world would become very lively. Ellipsis. Chapter 1035. Although Hanataro kept saying no, Luoken still felt a little guilty towards him, so he wanted to help him find a place to live in this world. The first thing Luoken thought of was Kazuki Urahara's house, but he didn't expect that Renji had already taken it, and Kazuki Urahara naturally refused to raise two gods of death. Is it okay if I pay? Luoken said disdainfully. Urahara Kazuki's eyes lit up immediately when he heard that, and he said that he was going to kick Asanjing Renji out, which made Hanataro a little embarrassed. Forget it, Mr. Luoken, let Renji live here. I'll find another place. Hanataro didn't want to push others away because of himself. Luoken nodded. He knew Hanataro's character. If it was because Hanataro squeezed Renji away, Hanataro wouldn't be able to live here either. Luoken took Hanataro for a walk on the road, and didn't know where he could stay. At this time, a recruitment message was posted at the door of the store, and Hanataro pointed and asked, Mr. Luoken, what does this mean tilde? Luoken replied indifferently, it's just work, and then the boss pays you. Coincidentally, the boss also came out. Seeing Hanataro, he felt a good match and asked, do you want to come to work? Hanataro was about to refuse, but the boss didn't give him the opportunity at all, so he pulled him indirectly, then helped Hanataro put on the staff uniform and dragged him to the cashier. What's even more coincidental is that there are still customers checking out at this time. The customer said to Hanataro, please help me calculate how much it is. Hanataro had an embarrassed expression on his face. The boss quickly handed him over to operate, and Hanataro's learning ability is also super strong. Just like that, Hanataro helped for an afternoon inexplicably. It's really hard for you today, this is your dinner. The boss took out the bento and handed it to Hanataro. Hanataro immediately showed a happy expression, and he felt embarrassed to see Luoken waiting for him all afternoon, so he handed the lunch to Luoken. Mr. Luoken, let's eat it for you. Luoken is not hungry yet. He is just curious that Hanataro is so happy because of the bento. Hasn't the god of death ever eaten a bento? The boss asked Hanataro, the store will close soon, do you want to go home? Speaking of this issue, Hanataro became annoyed. He hadn't found a place yet, so he helped him all afternoon. Now he can't stop thinking about where to go. The boss also saw Hanataro's embarrassment and suggested, diaresis if you don't dislike it, there is a room upstairs where you can rest. Would you like to live in a convenience store? Hanataro agreed immediately and agreed to continue working here. Luoken smiled helplessly. He thought of many possibilities, but he never expected that Hanataro would end up working in a convenience store. Hanataro, alright, he laughed, scratched his head and said to Luoken, the boss is really nice, and he even invited me to eat a free bento, I think I should pay a corresponding return. Luokan was really defeated by Hanataro, but Hanataro also had a place to live. It was better than living on the streets. That's it for today, I'll go first. Luo Chen saw that it was getting late, and he had to go back too, otherwise the wanderers and the others would also be worried. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1036. After saying goodbye to Hanataro, Luokan met Ishida Yuryu. He was relaxing, and the loss of his ability made him really distressed. I'll give this to you. Luo Chen put a small volumetric flask in Ishida Yulong's hand, which contained a spiritual child, which could allow Ishida Yulong to defend himself. Naturally, Ishida Yulong didn't want it. He didn't have the ability to fight now, and naturally he couldn't hold back Luokan and the others. Luokan said seriously, according to your character, if you find something wrong, you will definitely rush over. If you are in danger, you still need us to rescue you. Isn't that a hindrance? Ishida Yulong shuddered when he heard the word dragging his legs. Although his self-esteem couldn't handle it, his reason still made him accept it. Well, I believe that with your intelligence, you can flexibly use these spiritual sons. I'll go first, Luo Chen said and left. Ishida Yulong stood in the same place for a long time without moving, still fighting with self-esteem. I don't know how long it took. Yoshino actually appeared by Ishida Yulong's side. She noticed that Ishida Yulong exuded the power of a Quincy. Are you a Quincy? Fang Yi asked suspiciously. She didn't realize this when we met last time, so she was a little confused now. Ishida Yulong nodded naturally. Although he lost his power, he was still a Quincy. It turns out that there is the last Quincy in this world. Is this really God's will? Fang Yi suddenly said to himself. Ishida Yulong had absolutely no idea what she was talking about, but he understood that she was the enemy, so he quickly distanced himself and prepared for battle. Yoshino's eyes suddenly lit up, and Gate was summoned. Kill him, we must stop Yano's conspiracy. Fang Yi said loudly. She actually couldn't bear to kill Ishida Yulong, but who made him a Quincy? Gate could understand Yoshino's mood, so he didn't show any mercy, and every blow caused a huge explosion. Fortunately, Luokan just gave Ishida Yulong a volumetric flask, otherwise Ishida Yulong would not be able to avoid these attacks. What Ishida Yulong didn't know was that it was these spiritual sons of Luokan that made Feng Ye discover the identity of Ishida Yulong's Quincy. Damn it! Ishida Yulong watched as the number of spirits in the bottle continued to decrease, and it was about to bottom out soon, and the enemy did not let up at all. Even if he wanted to escape, it was impossible. This is the end, Gate said, releasing a huge pillar of fire, rushing towards Ishida Yulong fiercely. Ishida Yulong was stunned when he saw the pillar of fire coming, and it was too late to defend or escape with the remaining spirits. At the time of the crisis, Luokan appeared, and he split the pillar of fire with one knife, perfectly saving Yulong Ishida. Yo, we met again. It's really despicable to pick someone who is completely incompetent. Luo Chen said angrily. Yoshino frowned when he saw Luo Chen, knowing that his strength was not enough for him, so he let Gate release an attack and then ran away quickly. Luokan did not continue to track Yoshino, and now it is more important to check the injury of Ishida Yulong. How are you? No. Luo Chen asked with concern. Ishida Yulong replied stubbornly. I'm fine, hurry up and chase her. XXX. As soon as the voice fell, Ishida Yulong fell and fainted, which shocked Luokan. Ellipsis. Chapter 1037. Ichigo and the others also rushed over from the side. They all rushed over after sensing Yoshino's Reiatsu. Seeing Yulong Ishida lying on the ground, they all showed surprised expressions. Don't be stunned, come and help him get him to a nearby hospital. Luo Chen said helplessly. Ichigo and the others rushed forward to help, carrying Ishida Yulong to the nearest hospital. After the doctor's examination, Ishida Yulong didn't have any serious problems. It was just that his physical strength was overdrawn, and he fainted due to improper rest. It's fine if nothing happens, it really scared me to death. Orihime patted her chest and said reassuringly. The doctor continued. Although the person is not seriously injured, he still needs to be careful. He has suffered a lot of trauma, and it will take some time for him to recover. Luokan nodded. Since Ishida Yulong is injured now, let him be hospitalized for treatment, and they will take turns to take care of him. Because Luokan and the others were afraid that the Quincy would attack Ishida Yulong again, they requested that Ishida Yulong be placed in the ward on the highest floor. This hospital is really big. There are so many wards. It's almost impossible to compare it with my family. Ichigo said helplessly. Rukia said mercilessly. Of course, it can be seen from your small room, it's coming. Huh, you said what happened to my room, if you don't like it, you can move out. Ichigo retorted excitedly. Rukia was also arguing loudly, completely forgetting that this was a hospital. You two keep your voice down. Ishida Yulong finally couldn't help bursting out, sitting up from the bed and roaring loudly. Ichigo and Rukia shut their mouths obediently for a moment, and Orihime clapped her hands and said happily, Ishida-san, you finally woke up. Ishida Yulong was also very helpless. He could have slept until tomorrow morning, but Ichigo and Rukia kept arguing next to him, and he couldn't sleep at all. Actually, this is my dad's hospital. Ishida Yulong replied indifferently. Ichigo and the others instantly looked at Ishida as if they had discovered a new continent. Yulong, I didn't expect him to be a rich second generation. Ishida Yulong was a little embarrassed to be seen by everyone, and said embarrassingly, this hospital has nothing to do with me, don't think too much about it. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Ichigo and the others had already thought about it too much, and Orihime was even more direct, and said, in the future, let Ishida-san come over for dinner. Agree, everyone said in unison. Ishida Yulong's expression changed. All the money belonged to his father. He never thought about asking for a cent, but it was not a problem to invite them to a few meals. He still endured it. In the future, our breakfast will also be served by Ishida Yulong. Ichigo said loudly. Agreed. Orihime and the others echoed again. Ishida Yulong's face is getting darker and darker, and there is a possibility of an outbreak at any time. Luokan then said, Ishida Yulong also sponsored all the money to play on Saturdays and Sundays. Agree. The cheers sounded again. This time Ishida Yulong really couldn't bear it anymore. He pointed at Ichigo and others excitedly and said, don't go too far. I said that this hospital has nothing to do with me, and I won't use him a penny. Luokan and the others laughed happily when they saw Ishida Yulong's return to his original state, and each one of them cast gentle gazes on Ishida Yulong. 100 million. Chapter 1038. Of course we all know. Luo Chen said lightly, just now they just said it deliberately to make Ishida Yulong return to his original state. Ishida Yulong also reacted, and looked at Luokan and the others with emotion, thinking that it was really great to know them. What, it turned out to be a joke just now, I thought it was serious. Ichigo said lightly. The atmosphere was broken in 3, 4, 3, and Ishida Yulong slowly raised his fist and roared at Ichigo, how hungry are you? Ichigo smiled, he was just joking, he has a wanderer who cooks breakfast every day, how could he let Ishida Yulong buy him breakfast? Ichigo, don't make trouble, Ishida Yulong is serious. Luo Chen tugged at Ichigo. Ichigo scratched his head, apologized to Ishida Yulong, and then looked at Ishida Yulong tenderly. Okay, you can rest now, we won't make any more noise. Luokan said. Ishida Yulong nodded and immediately lay down to sleep. But with so many people staring at him, how could he sleep peacefully? You guys should go back, I don't need anyone to take care of me. Ishida Yulong said helplessly. But Ichigo disagreed, who knew when the soul hunter would appear? It would be too dangerous to leave Ishida Yulong alone here. He firmly wanted to stay and take care of Ishida Yulong. I'm staying too, it's really uncomfortable for you to be here. Rukia said firmly. Ichigo frowned and looked at Rukia and asked, "What do you mean? I am the one who saved you. Is this how you repay your savior?" Rukia and Ichigo quarreled again. Luokan sighed helplessly, and walked out of the room first. Chato, Orihime and Renji also followed Luokan out of the ward and sat on the bench in the corridor to rest. "Oh, it's really embarrassing for Ishida Yulong. It's really pitiful to have to suffer such a disaster when I'm sick." Luokan felt sorry for Ishida Yulong. There was a quarrel between Ichigo and Rukia from the ward, and Yuryu Ishida lay on the bed as if resigned, covering his head with a quilt to keep the quarrel as quiet as possible. However, the two quarreling people do not know how much trouble they have caused Ishida Yulong. Luokan couldn't bear it anymore. The two of them actually quarreled for an hour. The important thing was that they didn't know what they were arguing about. "Enough for the two of you, Ishida Yulong is still resting," Luo Chen said loudly as he opened the door. Ichigo and Rukia quickly apologized to Luokan, and then to Ishida Yuryu. Ishida Yulong was also desperate in his heart. He finally got used to the sound of quarrels, and just as he was about to fall asleep, he was frightened by Luokan. Ishida Yulong looked at Ichigo and the others with tears in their eyes, and really didn't know what to say. Seeing Yulong Ishida's expression, Luokan gave Ichigo and Rukia a lecture, telling them to stop arguing about Yulong Ishida and rest. The corners of Ishida Yulong's mouth twitched twice. The loudest noise is Luokan, but he was too embarrassed to say anything, so he lay helplessly on the bed. When Luokan saw that Ishida Yulong was lying down, he didn't say anything anymore. He closed the door gently and retreated to the outside of the ward. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1039. Ishida Yulong originally thought he could rest well, but the tap kept dripping. The sound of dripping water from the silent room made Ichigo and Rukia very irritable. Ichigo stood up first and walked towards the faucet, twisted it hard twice and returned to his position. But the sound of water droplets continued, and Rukia walked over and twisted it twice, but she still didn't turn off the water. "Che, this hospital is really a fake, these appliances are really old enough," Ichigo said disdainfully. Ishida Yulong said embarrassedly, "I'm really embarrassed, I will definitely let them make changes." Rukia quickly smiled and comforted Ishida Yulong, saying that he was joking. At this time, two figures walked out of the hospital corridor, and they smiled sinisterly in the direction of Ishida Yulong. "Stand up. We are so lucky to have found the Quincy so quickly. Yes, the credit this time must be ours. Before that, let's have a good time." Luo Chen suddenly opened his eyes. He felt the spiritual pressure of the soul hunter. He quickly woke everyone up, and then opened the door to check the situation. "Well, Luokan, what happened?" Rukia asked suspiciously when she saw Luokan pushing the door in. After Luokan looked around the ward, he finally locked his eyes on the faucet in the bathroom. "Why can't the water be shut off?" Luokan stepped forward and forced the water valve, but it didn't work at all. Instead there was more and more water. Orihime and the others also walked in, and when they saw the water in the bathroom, they began to shout. "Hurry up and get a bucket to catch the water. I'll look for it, come right away." Chadu ran out. Seeing this scene, Yulong Ishida felt very embarrassed. He opened his mouth and didn't know what to say, so he just pretended to be asleep. Luokan felt that the water was a little abnormal, so he quickly told everyone to leave. When people left the bathroom, the water jet rushed out violently. Unable to stop it, Luokan quickly closed the bathroom door. "Everyone, be careful, a new enemy has appeared." Luo Chen could feel the difference in the water, so he quickly reminded everyone. Ichigo and the others also became nervous, staring at the bathroom door. After all, water is a liquid. As long as there are some gaps, it can escape, and the bathroom door can't stop them. These people are so naive, they think they can stop our attack. "Yeah, let's have a good time," the soul hunter hiding in the dark said proudly. The water rushed out of the bathroom, and a tall water column was erected in front of Ichigo. "What's going on here? Is this also a doll?" Orihime asked suspiciously. Judging from the current situation, the other party must be a bad visitor. No matter what, we must protect Ishida Yulong. Suddenly, the water column launched an attack on Ishida Yulong. Luo Chen quickly took out the Zanpakuto to block the impact of the water column, and then asked Chadu to take Ishida Yulong out. It was too dangerous here. Chadu picked up Ishida Yuryu without saying a word and ran out of the room. Orihime and Renji also chased out. They knew that Ishida Yuryu was the target of the other party, so naturally they had to protect him. The water column recovered immediately after being cut in half by the Zanpakuto. After all, it was liquid, and there were no scars on the body at all. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1040. It seems that this time the puppets are even more troublesome, so let's run away. Luo Chen has no way to get along with them yet, so he can only run away. But the water column didn't give Ichigo this chance, so he rushed over fiercely, and directly rolled Ichigo into the air. Ichigo! Rukia raised her hand and fired a red cannon at the water column. When the red artillery collided with the water column, the water was obviously evaporating, and the size of the water column became much smaller. Luokan, they are afraid of flames, use the power of the 9 tails. Rukia reminded. Luo Chen was naturally rude, and with a forceful flick, Zanpakuto extended 9 tails, and each tail was lit with a ghost fire. Ghost fire Jade! Luo Chen shouted and threw the ghost fire out. After the collision between the ghost fire and the water column, there was a violent impact, and the water vapor was continuously emitted. When the water column was about to disappear, the door of the bathroom was opened, and a new source of water was poured into the water. Stab tilde. The ghost fire was extinguished by the water column, and it wandered back and forth towards Luo Chen. Luo Chen dodged with a tumbling roll, dragged Ichigo and Rukia and ran outside. Judging from the battle just now, the only way to completely defeat this doll is to find a place without water. Haha, water is the source of human life, and it can be seen everywhere tilde. Yeah, they were so stupid that they thought they could escape the attacks of Gru and Jintai. The Soul Hunter laughed proudly, thinking that this game of cat and mouse is very interesting, and continued to control the dolls to hunt down Ichigo and others. Ichigo and the others caught up with Chadu. Just when they thought it was safe, water came out of the tap on the side again, and rushed towards Ichigo and the others. Ghost fire Jade! Luo Chen resisted forcefully, asking Rukia and the others to find a place without water to escape. Ichigo is not good at this kind of thing, so he asked worriedly, where is there no water? Doesn't this hospital have a roadmap? XXX. Hearing this, Yulong Ishida said in a low voice, I'm really sorry, I'll let them improve. At this time, Orihime found the layout of the hospital, and the group quickly searched for a safe route. As a result, no matter how they looked, they found a place to pass through the water source. Isn't it okay? Luokan said anxiously, there are so many water sources around, it is impossible to destroy this doll. Seeing that Luo Chen was struggling to resist, Rukia joined the defense, constantly firing red cannons to attack the doll. Diaresis okay, I'll help too. Oriji said that she wanted to activate the power of Dunshin Liuhua, but Luokan stopped she. The mission of the few of you is to protect Ishida Yulong. Leave this hospital quickly, and don't waste your energy on us. Luo Chen said firmly, he could still handle this level of attack. Orihime looked worriedly at the figures of Luokan and Rukia fighting, and felt very unwilling. All right. Trust them. Only by fleeing here can we make them fight more at ease. Chato said to Orihime. Orihime nodded and finally found a route with less water. Nice work, hurry up and leave. Ichigo said firmly, he wanted to stay and help Luokan and Rukia. Renji naturally wanted to stay, but Rukia refused to let them cover Yuryu Ishida. Ellipsis dot. Chapter 1041. Ichigo and Renji were reluctant to catch up with Chato, protecting Ishida Yulong towards the elevator. As long as they got on the elevator water source, they would not be able to catch up. Luokan and Rukia blocked the water column and approached the elevator. After a while, the water column disappeared. I've been caught, let's chase. Luo Chen frowned, the water was moving much faster than they were running. When Luokan and Rukia arrive, Ichigo and Renji are fighting an uphill battle. Red cannon. Rukia fired at the water column in front of Renji. The Kai cannon directly dissipated the water column, and it disappeared in the blink of an eye. At this time, two people appeared in front of Chato and Orihime. They were the soul hunters who caused this disaster. What do you want to do? Orihime asked nervously. Pan and Pung each took out a water bottle, then unscrewed the bottle cap and threw it on the ground, then poured out the water in the water bottle. With a whoosh, the two dolls ran out and flexibly coiled in front of Orihime and Chadu. Haha, don't think you can escape our attack, Gru, kill them. Pan said proudly. After receiving the order, the doll immediately charged towards Chadu, and Orihime quickly released the power of Dunshin Liuhua, 3 days to form a shield. I refuse. A light shield appeared in front of Chadu, successfully blocking the doll's attack. It seems that you also use strange powers, so let's deal with you first. Pung looked at Oriji and said ruthlessly. The puppet shifted its target, aiming at Orihime and charging towards it quickly. Orihime was stunned for a moment, it was too late to activate the power of Dunshin Liuhua. At the critical moment, Luo Chen and others rushed over. Ghost Fire Jade, Luo Chen shouted loudly, waving his 9 tails. The ghost fire resisted in front of Orihime, successfully diffused the doll's attack, and protected Orihime. Che, the guy who is here to die again, since you are in such a hurry to die, we are welcome. Pan said angrily. Pung's expression also became serious, and he controlled the puppets to attack Luokan and the others together. Everyone be careful. Luo Chen ran to Chadu, blocked the doll's attack and let Chadu run away quickly. Chadu didn't hesitate, as long as he was outside, he could fight freely. Don't try to run, Iwan shouted angrily. The puppet gave up attacking Luokan and turned to chase Chadu. Luo Chen naturally couldn't leave them alone, and waved his 9 tails to light a wall of fire behind him. If the doll wanted to force a breakthrough, it would definitely be extinguished by the flames. Damn guy, kill him for me, Pan Hapeng shouted angrily. The two puppets also attacked Luokan together. Due to the anger of the soul hunter, the puppet's attack became more swift and violent, and Luokan almost did not escape. Red Cannon. Rukia released Oneida again to support her. But this time, the red cannon didn't do any damage to the doll. There were too many water sources around, and Rukia's power was too weak. Tilda. The doll flicked Rukia away with a flick of its tail. But Renji couldn't wait any longer when she saw this scene, so she directly released the red cannon to attack. However, Renji's attack was not as good as Rukia's, so naturally it didn't work, but the doll was knocked away. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1042. Damn it, don't go too far. Ichigo attacked the doll with his Zanpakuto. Luokan quickly stopped Ichigo. Physical attacks like his were completely ineffective. Now the most important thing is to lead them to a place without water. Ichigo takes the two of them to leave quickly, just leave it to me here. Luo Chen said coldly. Although Ichigo was a little unwilling, he knew that it would be no problem to hand it over to Luo Chen, so he ran away without looking back. You don't really think you can beat the two of us, Pan said proudly, with a mocking expression on his face. Pung also had the same expression. In their eyes, he was invincible. The corners of Luokan's mouth twitched together, and he waved his 9 tails to attack Pung and Pan. Since hitting the puppet is useless, then just attack the manipulator. Pan and Pung both looked surprised. They didn't expect Luokan to attack them. Gru. Jin Tai. The puppet immediately ran in front of Iwan and Pung to block, filling up all of the 9 tails. Ha ha ha, do you think we would be hit by you so easily? Pan laughed. The dolls have their own consciousness, and they will automatically defend when they feel that their master is attacked. Luo Chen was not in a hurry, and shouted firmly, "Nine tails." I saw the battle spirit in Luo Chen's hand glowing Mang. After the light dissipated, Zhu Wei appeared in front of Luokan. "Doll, are you also a soul hunter?" Pan and Peng asked suspiciously. Luokan didn't say anything, just let the nine tails attack. Roar tilde, Zhu Wei let out a big mouth, spit out a fireball from his mouth, and charged towards the doll fiercely. With a bang, the doll was directly evaporated, but soon revived from the surrounding water source. "Ha ha ha, no matter how you fight, Gru will never be defeated. Don't be naive, hurry up and clean up." Jin Tai, the soul hunter, ordered the puppet to attack Luo Chen. Suddenly, Ziba ran out from the side, moved Luokan in space, and avoided the attack. Luo Chen thanked Ziba and asked, "Why are you here? Ishida Yulong and the others have already escaped." Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Ziba nodded and asked Luokan to run away quickly. Ishida Yulong and the others were already on the first floor. When Luo Chen heard this, he smiled at ease, punched the window, and jumped directly from the fourth floor. But as soon as he jumped out, he found that it was raining in the air. "What the hell, doesn't even God help us?" Luo Chen shook his head helplessly. It seemed that he would have to teach the soul hunters a lesson before they could retreat. Ishida Yulong and the others also showed shocked expressions when they saw the rain outside, and the soul hunter had already arrived outside the hospital. "What should I do now?" Orihime asked worriedly. Ichigo clenched the zanpakudo tightly. Even if he continued to stay in the hospital, he would still be caught, so he might as well fight. "Let's go, we must protect Ishida Yulong, and we can't let them succeed," Ichigo said and walked out of the hospital first. Chadu and the others also came out one after another. The two soul hunters burst into laughter when they saw them come out. 100 million. Chapter 1043. The two puppets twisted back and forth in front of Luokan, and Luokan was not afraid at all. With nine tails here, what else would he be afraid of? "Don't forget us, we will be very troubled." Ichigo led the crowd to appear behind Luokan. Luo Chen smiled lightly, waved his hands casually, and said, "Even without you, I would easily clean them up." The soul hunter was very angry when he heard these 347 words, and controlled the doll to launch an attack. The puppets are coming fiercely, but Luokan has no defense. Just when the soul hunter thought he had won someone, Luo Chen shouted loudly, "Nine tails." A huge fireball shot at the soul hunter. The doll felt that the master was threatened, and immediately gave up the attack and turned to protect it. However, the fireball of the nine tails was so powerful that it exploded even with the protection of the doll, and the two soul hunters were affected. "Luokan is really amazing," Orihime said excitedly. Renji was also shocked by Luokan's move. This way of fighting is a gamble, to see which side will be attacked first. "My strength is still far behind Luokan." Renji clenched his fists unwillingly. Luokan quickly asked Chadu to escape with Ishida Yulong. Chado nodded and ran away with the modified souls and Orihime. The soul hunters were obviously provoked by the battle just now, and said viciously, "Gru, Jintai, don't be merciful anymore, kill this man for me." The two puppets rushed towards Luokan alternately. Rukia and Renji fired red cannons together, and the puppets were sent flying again. "Damn guys appear one after another, it really makes me angry," the two soul hunters shouted angrily. In the rain, the doll returned to its original state again, and it seemed that it was impossible for the doll to disappear without completely defeating the soul hunter. "They don't seem to have attacked alone, is there any problem?" Rukia asked. Luokan also discovered this problem. Their attack was indeed very powerful. If they attacked separately, Luokan might not be able to withstand it. Gru. Jintai. The soul hunter is already angry, and he ignores Ishida Yuryu for the time being, so let the puppets attack Rukia and the others. Rukia and Renji kept releasing red cannons, but it was raining, the dolls recovered quickly, and the damage to their bodies gradually diminished. With a plop, Rukia and Renji were trapped in the water column by the doll. Renji, Rukia, Ichigo shouted and waved his Zanpakuto to save people, but was tied up instead, leaving only Luokan as a fighting force. Luokan is worried now. If the power is too strong, it will hurt the three of Ichigo, but if the power is not enough, it will not be able to do effective damage. Roar! Jue shouted to cheer Luo Chen up and make him believe in his own strength. Luo Chen smiled faintly, looked at Jue and said firmly, "Go on, Jue, and defeat them completely." Ninetails opened her mouth, and a black sphere condensed in her mouth. Luokan knew that this tail-struck beast Jade would be the winner. Whether he used water to revive or air, in short, kill them all quickly. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1044. XXX. The atmosphere suddenly became tense, and the two soul hunters were also frightened by this momentum, so they quickly let the puppet attack the Ninetails. The puppet rushed towards the Ninetails quickly, but it was too late. Even if the tailed beast Jade with the lowest power hit it, these puppets would not exist. Boom! The small black ball completely surrounded the two dolls, and then made a sound of destruction, but the Ninetails had already controlled their power, so Ichigo, Kia and Renji were not hurt. How could this be? The two soul hunters looked at the Ninetails in surprise, unable to believe that their puppets just disappeared. The rain continued to fall from the sky, but the two soul hunters could no longer summon dolls to fight. Damn, let's go first. The soul hunter picked up the bottle cap and ran away. Ichigo raised his Zanpakuto and tried to catch up, but he was caught by Luo Chen. The blow just now caused a great sensation. The first thing to do is to escape from here. Luokan took Ichigo and the others to chase Ishida Yuryu, and Lilin left a mark for them on the way. What was that blow just now? Rukia asked Luo Chen while she was looking for Yulong Ishida. The blow just now could obviously destroy the whole world. Luokan replied indifferently. The tailed beast Jade is a unique trick that can destroy the sky and destroy the earth. After hearing this, Renji looked at Luokan with horror, and asked excitedly, "Did you also want to kill us just now? Aren't you all doing well now?" Luo Chen said with a smile. Renji couldn't accept such an answer, and was still afraid in his heart. He felt that he had passed through the gate of hell, and he would never dare to provoke Luokan again. I didn't expect that he still had such power hidden. What's the matter? Are you afraid? This is the medium power among the nine-tailed tricks. Luo Chen said lightly. After these words, Renji's face became even more ugly, but she just continued to run forward mechanically. Her mind had stopped thinking. Luokan sighed helplessly. He was afraid of such a situation, so he didn't want Jue to use that move. Yeah, I was so scared. Luo Chen said helplessly. Ichigo and Rukia looked at Renji with disgust on their faces. It was really useless for such a big man to be frightened by the attack of the Ninetails. Renji immediately cheered up after feeling the contemptuous gaze, and he couldn't accept Ichigo looking at him like an idiot. What kind of eyes are you looking at? Even though you are scared to death, you are still trying to be brave. It's really dishonest, Renji said disdainfully. Ichigo retorted loudly, "Whoever is afraid, I won't be scared stupid like someone," showing a foolish look. Who are you calling an idiot? Renji and Ichigo quarreled like this. The corners of Luokan's mouth twitched a few times. Ichigo really can still quarrel with the people around him no matter where he goes. He also admires Ichigo's talent. Suddenly, Ziba appeared in front of Luokan and them, and he came to ask for help. What, the Soul Hunter has caught up with you? Luo Chen was shocked, but he didn't expect Soul Hunter to be so persistent and pursue Ishida Yulong so relentlessly. This time he would not be merciful. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1045. Luokan and his party quickly chased up, and when they arrived, they saw that two Soul Hunters had already caught Ishida Yulong, and Chadu chose to leave because he was worried about Ishida Yulong's safety. HMPH, to even dare to come back, I really don't know whether to live or die. Luo Chen said indifferently, summoning 9 tails to fight. Pan said disdainfully, "Are you really going to attack and ignore the life of this famous Quincy master?" Luokan doesn't like being threatened by others. Since they already know that Ishida Yulong is useful to them, it is impossible for them to kill Ishida Yulong. 9 tails attack. 9 tails attacked the doll immediately after receiving the order, and the doll was shattered at once, but it quickly returned to its original state. There were angry expressions on the faces of the 2 soul hunters. They didn't expect Luokan to really attack. "It seems that your friendship is not very good. You don't even care about your companion's life. This guy is really pitiful." Ichigo got anxious and blamed Luokan for attacking. "It doesn't matter, don't mind me, you guys hurry up and run tilde." Ishida Yulong said loudly, trying his best to endure the pain in his body. Luo Chen pretended to be indifferent and said, "HMPH, do you have all this strength? It's really disappointing." The 2 soul hunters were stimulated by Luo Chen's words. Their faces flushed red, and they looked at Luo Chen and others angrily. They were going to use their real power. "Since you want to get to know them, I'll grant your wish. Go, Jin Tai." Following the orders of the 2 soul hunters, the 2 dolls rushed to Luokan and attacked them. Ichigo and the others immediately defended, but the water column was scattered and surrounded them. The water was tightly blocking their faces, so that they couldn't breathe. Luokan was not attacked because the 9 tails set up flames around him. This attack surprised Luokan a little. "Haha, this is our strength. They can go to any place with water, and most of the human body is water." The 2 soul hunters laughed wildly. Falchian's brows furrowed. Looking at Ichigo and their unhappy appearance, Luo Chen felt uncomfortable. "9 tails, leave me alone, go and defeat those 2 guys," Luo Chen said firmly. Kyuubi immediately rushed over, unleashing a ferocious attack on the 2 soul hunters, and sent Iwan flying out in one fell swoop. Diaresis hula tilde yes. Because a soul hunter was sent flying, the dolls lost control and came out of Ichigo's body. "Pan!" Peng shouted and chased out. The 2 of them needed to be together to be able to exert a stable strength. Seeing that Peng also ran out, Luokan immediately scattered the dolls beside him, and successfully rescued Ishida Yulong. Ichigo excitedly said to Luokan, "Do you know how dangerous it was just now? We were almost killed." "All right Zhao, just now." Luokan shrugged his shoulders and replied, "Aren't you all right now? And I believe you won't die because of this little thing." Ichigo obviously couldn't accept this statement. He blushed and looked at Luokan, but he was at a loss for words. Ishida Yulong felt very sad when he saw Ichigo like this. He thought that he was the only one who dragged them down, and he made up his mind to leave them. Chapter 1046. Seeing that Pan fainted, Peng took out the bottle cap angrily, and said excitedly, "Even if it's just me, I can do it. Come out, Gru, Jin Tai." The 2 dolls reappeared in front of Luokan. Rukia and Renji used the red cannon together, but the power was not ideal, but instead gave the enemy an opportunity to take advantage. Luokan quickly pulled Renji and Rukia back. Just when he was about to attack, a voice came from the side. "Shalwa is here, right?" "Yes. Iwanami." Luokan and the others saw a hole in the wall, and the original wall had turned into sand. Gansu and Hanataro appear before them. "Why are you 2 here?" Ichigo asked excitedly. Hanataro smiled. He was originally on a mission, and he came over after sensing the breath of the soul hunter, and Ganju was also sent by Konghi to investigate the situation. "There's another guy in the way, it's really hateful." Peng excitedly controlled the puppet to attack Luokan and the others. Luokan quickly pulled Gansu and Hanataro over to briefly talk about the situation. "Flame, then let me do it, but don't forget what our Shiba clan is famous for," Gansu said confidently. Ichigo asked indifferently, "What is famous? Isn't it sand?" "Idiot, it's fireworks, fireworks." Ganju roared at Ichigo. If it wasn't for the fireworks from their house, how could Ichigo and the others have entered the spiritual court? Fallen Chen told Ganju to stop talking nonsense, and quickly released his ultimate move. Gansu took out a fireworks bomb from behind and threw it at the doll, but unfortunately the fireworks went out as soon as it reached the doll's body. It's really useless. Ichigo and the others looked at Gansu with disgust. Ganju was also dumbfounded, and looked at the puppet helplessly, which was different from what he imagined. When Peng saw this scene, he burst into laughter. He thought that some powerful character was here, but he was just a hilarious waste. Ninetales. Luo Chen gave an order, and Ninetales opened his mouth and fired a huge fireball, hitting the doll's body, successfully causing the fireworks to explode. Bang bang bang. The fireworks jumped violently in the doll's body, dashing back and forth, and the doll was defeated. It's impossible, it's impossible. Peng stepped back in disbelief, trying to summon the doll again, but there was a sharp pain in his body. A strange light radiated from Peng's body, and then Peng began to disappear like soot. What's the situation? Ichigo asked in surprise, which was beyond his comprehension. Luokan said lightly, the ability of soul hunters is beyond the power of humans, so when the doll is defeated, this power will have a backlash against the host. Ichigo and the others still felt a little uncomfortable watching the two soul hunters disappear in front of them. Strange, Ishida Yulong is gone. Orihime said in surprise. Luokan and the others hurriedly searched around, but they found nothing. Damn, could it be taken away by other soul hunters? Ichigo asked. Luokan shook his head, he didn't feel any other spiritual pressure, so he ruled out this possibility. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1047. Luokan asked them to go home first. He always felt that something was wrong, so he had to go check the situation by himself. Ichigo originally insisted on going with Luokan, but was forcibly taken away by Rukia on the grounds that he would only cause trouble. Ichigo defended hoarsely, but as a result, everyone thought that going with Luokan would cause him trouble, and Ichigo had to go home. Luokan walked on the street and carefully felt the reiatsu around him, but there was nothing unusual. Master, I can help you find it. Ninetales said telepathically. Luokan immediately called Jue out, but when Jue heard from the east and the west, he found Luokan's spiritual pressure with his nose. My spiritual pressure. Luo Chen suddenly realized when he thought of the spiritual child he gave to Ishida Yulong before. Nice job, take me there quickly. Just like that, Kyubi brought Luokan came to a room next to a big clock, and Luokan rushed in. Ishida Yulong is indeed here, hurry up and return him. Luo Chen said firmly, with murderous intent in his eyes. Fang Ye smiled faintly after seeing Luo Chen, pointed to the room beside him, and asked Luo Chen to take a look. Luokan walked in and saw that Ishida Yulong's wound had been bandaged, the fever had subsided, and he was sleeping, so Luokan exited the room. What's your purpose? Luo Chen felt that something was wrong with Fang Yi from the moment he came in, which was a little different from the previous soul hunters. Yoshino didn't say anything, just walked to the window and looked at the people on the street. Tell me, maybe I can help you. Luo Chen said vigilantly, he was still unable to determine whether Fang Ye was good or bad. Yoshino once really wanted Luokan to help her defeat God Yano, but she has decided to defeat God Yano with her own strength. Thank you, but I don't need it now. I don't have the right to ask anyone for help. It's so ironic. Yoshino was saddened, and his heart was full of sadness. It turned out that Yoshino wanted to absorb the souls of living people to become stronger and stop Yano's plan, but he was stopped by Yaiki and Luokan, so he didn't make a big mistake. You and those guys aren't in the same group, right? I can feel it, tell me all their plans, and I'll help you. Luo Chen tried to find out the purpose of the soul hunter with little by little clichés. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 XXX. Fang Ye smiled faintly, looked at Luokan and said directly, if you want to know the soul hunter's plan, just ask me directly, and I will tell you the truth. Luokan didn't expect Fangye to be so generous. He didn't hide anything anymore, and asked directly. Yoshino opened his mouth and told Yano God's plan. After they absorbed the souls of living people, they could become stronger, and then they could use the power of the Quincy to go to the Soul Realm to take revenge. Luokan didn't expect their target to be the Soul Realm. It was really a bold plan. Why did you stop him? Luo Chen was curious about Fangye's betrayal of them. Fangye told Luokan the origin of the Soul Hunter family. Their existence was an accident, and they would not die. They possessed the power of longevity, but this also brought them a lot of trouble, and everyone around them was afraid of them. Yoshino was once lost because of being ostracized and lost hope of life. At that time, she met Yano God, who gave her hope of living again. 100 million. Chapter 1048. Yoshino lives with Yano God, but Yoshino has the idea of rebelling after discovering that Yano God is using her, but her power is too weak to pose a threat to Yano God at all. It seems that you are also a victim. How do you want to stop him? Luo Chen continued to ask. Fangye took a breath and looked at the scenery outside the window and said lightly, if I can, I really want to experience death. What does it feel like? Death. Luokan has experienced it several times, and that feeling is very uncomfortable. Trust me, you won't like death. Luo Chen said firmly. Fangye suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of trust when he saw Luokan's appearance, as if everything could be solved with him. Are you really from this world? I always feel that there is a complex power in you. This is a woman's intuition. Fangye smiled proudly. Luokan also smiled faintly. A woman's intuition was really accurate, and Luokan didn't care to say that she didn't belong to this world. It seems that you have a lot of stories about you. Can you share them? Fangye looked at Luokan with interest. Just when Luokan was about to say something, Ishida Yulong came out of the house and was surprised when he saw Luokan and Fangye. You finally woke up. Do you want to ask me why I want to save you? Fangye said after seeing the doubt in Ishida Yulong's eyes. Ishida Yulong did have a lot of doubts. Last night, after he left Ichigo and the others, he fell on the road. The last person who appeared in front of him was Yoshino. Did you save me? Ishida Yulong thought it was Luokan who saved him. Yoshino nodded lightly, poured a cup of tea for Ishida Yulong and Luokan, and sat down to chat. Ishida Yulong, come back with me. Ichigo and the others are very worried about you. Luokan suggested. Ishida Yulong refused. He had already implicated Ichigo once, so he couldn't bring them any more trouble. You are afraid of causing trouble to your companions. Maybe it's a good choice to live with me. Yoshino said. Luokan laughed, waved his hands and shrugged his shoulders, and said to Ishida Yulong, your worries are unnecessary. You no longer have the power of a quencher, so it is of no use to soul hunters. Just let Fangye tell they and I are the ones they are looking for. No, Ishida Yulong refused. He had already lost the power of a Quincy. In a sense, Luokan was the last Quincy in the world, so he couldn't let Luokan also accident. Fangye was shocked to hear the news. He didn't expect that Luo Chen also had the power of a Quincy. No wonder he felt that he was different from other people. Ishida Yulong looked at Fangye and said with a firm attitude, you must never tell anyone about Luokan. Fangye nodded and agreed. She wanted to borrow Luokan's power before, but now that she knew that he was a Quincy, she didn't dare to borrow it, for fear that Luokan would also be caught and used by God Yano, which would backfire. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1049. In order to protect Ishida Yulong, Luokan naturally wouldn't be afraid, and said seriously, you have to trust me, I will definitely defeat them. Ishida Yulong rejected Luokan's idea, thinking that he was too naive. Just when Luokan wanted to say something else, the door was violently opened, and a new soul hunter appeared. Follow me back, you can't escape. The soul hunter said coldly. Yoshino's brows furrowed tightly, so she would not return to Yano's side and continue to work hard for him, so she put on a fighting state. Gate, prepare to fight. Yoshino 22's doll appeared, burning with raging fire, staring at the other party vigilantly. The soul hunter took out a piece of steel, threw it into the air, and said, "Tannic, come out." The steel gradually turned into a spherical shape, then continued to expand outward, and finally turned into a human shape. "Koga, did you call me out to start a war?" Tannic said sinisterly. From the tone of his voice, we could tell that he was a doll who likes fighting very much. Gate immediately launched an attack after seeing Tannic, while Yoshino asked Luokan to quickly take Ishida Yuryu away. "No, I want to stay and help you." Ishida Yulong frowned. Luokan naturally didn't want to leave either. There was no reason for a woman to protect her, so she stood in front of Fangye. "Leave this to me, you take Ishida Yulong and leave quickly." Luo Chen said that he was about to rush out, but Fangye grabbed him. Since Yoshino's attention was no longer on the body of the fight, Tannic found the flaw in Gate and knocked it out with a single blow. "Gate!" Yoshino shouted, hurriedly chasing out. Luokan and Ishida Yuryu also chased after them, and Tannic and Koga also came out. "Give it up, you can't beat me, Tannic, I don't want to hurt you," Koga said indifferently. Yoshino's attitude is also very firm. She will never return to Yano's side, let alone help him complete his plan. Luo Chen took out the Zanpakuto and prepared to fight. Fangye stopped in front of Luokan and said to Ishida Yulong, "If you want to help me, run away quickly and don't get caught by the soul hunters." Ishida Yulong immediately understood what Yoshino meant. She wanted the soul hunter to shift the target to herself, so as to protect Luokan's identity from being discovered. "This is the Quincy you found. Your sins can be forgiven." Koga turned his attention to Yulong Ishida. Luokan frowned, and just wanted to speak the truth out loud, but Yoshino controlled Gate to launch an attack. The fierce flames surrounded Tannic, and the raging fire burned Tannic. "I can feel your enthusiasm. It's so wonderful, let me love and care for you," Tannic said excitedly, and the flames scattered with a shock of his arms. Fangye was stunned for a moment, and quickly let Ishida Yulong escape. She knew she couldn't resist for long. Tannic rushed towards Gate quickly, knocking Gate to the ground in 3 or 2 strokes, while Yuryu Ishida attacked Tannic with the iron bar on the side. Dang! The iron rod was broken, but Tannic had nothing to do. Tannic turned his attention to Yuryu Ishida and asked Koga if he wanted to get rid of this kid. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1050. "No, you have to keep the mouth alive, just catch him," Koga replied indifferently. Tannic laughed, and saw that his arms were scattered and turned into many steel balls, all of them smashed at Yulong Ishida, pushing him directly to the ground. "Damn, let me go." Ishida Yulong struggled frantically, but to no avail. Luo Chen couldn't bear it any longer. He waved his 9 tails and rushed towards Tannic, splitting the steel ball with force, but with one knife, there were more steel balls. "Ha ha ha, I also feel your enthusiasm, but you're not my type, so get out of the way," Tannic said with a smile, while controlling the steel ball to attack Luokan. Luokan quickly began to understand. The Zanpakuto's blade turned into 9 tails, and then the steel ball was blown away by Luokan's flexible swing. "I really like this touch, let me feel more enthusiasm," Tannic said, and disbanded his other arm, attacking Luokan with twice the power than before. Luokan snorted coldly. No matter how many these cumbersome beads came, he wouldn't be afraid. He quickly twirled his 9 tails and knocked back the flying steel balls. Tannic was also very excited to meet an opponent like Luo Chen, and asked Koga if he could play for a while. "No, hurry up and catch Yoshino and Quincy to leave, don't waste time Tilda." Koga still showed an indifferent face. Tannic has a little regret. He originally wanted to play with Luokan for a while. It doesn't seem to work. "Little handsome guy, get ready, I'm going to release all my enthusiasm." As Tannic said, he scattered his body, and countless steel balls flew towards the falling dust together. Luo Chen wasn't afraid either. He used the 9-tailed tail to block frantically, and the steel ball couldn't break through the defense at all. Just when Luokan was complacent, Ishida Yuryu and Yoshino shouted, It happened. Luokan was a little careless this time. Tanuk's attack was just a feint, and its real targets were Ishida Yulong and Yoshino. Could it be that Luo Chen felt that the power of the attack was no different from the previous one? That's what happened. We'll see you next time. Tanuk waved his hand to say goodbye to Luokan. Luokan naturally wanted to chase, but Ishida Yulong and Yoshino both rejected him at the same time, and told him not to chase him no matter what. Diaresis, the two of them will be fine, but you, if you catch up, Tanuk will kill you. Koga said firmly. He would never let Luokan follow him back to the base of. Luokan's brows furrowed tightly. At this moment, Ichigo and Lilin came over after sensing the spirit hunter's breath. Ishida Yuryu. Ichigo shouted loudly when he saw Ishida Yuryu being caught, and wanted to go to save people, but Tanuk Googly beat him back at once. Ishida Yulong said lightly, "Thank you, that's enough." Koga ran away with Ishida Yuryu and Yoshino, while Ichigo wanted to continue chasing them. "No, let's go back to Rukia and the others to discuss what to do," Luokan said sadly. He was worried that Ichigo would be killed if he caught up, so he had to take a long-term view.